Manhattan shook with terror. A deafening roar split the sky as the behemoth, the monster of the end, crashed down. Across the globe, every screen blared the same message. All Monster Hunter players mobilize or face extinction. Panic spread. Formations broke. The fate of the world now rested in the hands of gamers. It hadn't started this way. Back in 2010, it was just a global game called BattleNet. But by 2022, Earth was caught in real interstellar war, forced to fight alien beasts. Humanity kept losing. Now it's 2023. Only 10 nations remain. And one monster could end it all. Just as Behemoth's rampage seemed unstoppable, a lone figure cut through the smoke. Seon Ji-han, rank 7 worldwide and a member of the American First Guild. With one punch, he dropped the monster dead. Silence fell. Players stared in disbelief. Whispers spread. Did he just do that alone? Is that a Marshall Saint's power? Then, a mission alert appeared. United States mission complete. On a rooftop, Baron Williams, top-ranked player and leader of American First, declared victory, calling it another win for America and naming himself its master. Meanwhile, Priestess Sophia, ranked 3rd globally, hurried to Jahan's side. A teammate warned her of lingering danger, but Baron allowed it, trusting her strength. Baron observed the immense energy still radiating from Behemoth's corpse, enough to knock out most people. Yet Jihan stood unfazed. Sophia rushed over and began regenerating his severed arm, warning the process would be painful due to the lingering evil aura. Jihan stayed silent and endured it. Suddenly, a treasure chest appeared. The boss's reward. A player called it out from above. Baron stepped forward, telling them to stand aside. He'd handle it. Nearby, one hunter scoffed, he's acting like he killed it. Another replied, in times like this, we need guys like him. As the crowd celebrated, Baron began announcing rewards, naming Sophia, Player 4 and Player 5. Then he paused. Sophia immediately questioned him. What about Jihan? He killed the behemoth. Baron pointed at Jihan and replied coldly, he's not American, just a useful dog. Sophia started to argue, but Jihan cut her off. It doesn't matter, he said, turning and walking away. Jihan walked with heavy steps, Baron's words echoing in his mind. He was just a refugee, a survivor who lost everything. Even with an SSR's rank skill and 7th in global rankings, recognition never came, only discrimination. But what hurt most was the guilt of surviving alone. Shaking off the thoughts, he focused on healing. The mission results were coming. Then the system message appeared. Game end. The Bronze League emotion results were in. Only the USA and China passed the defense mission. The other 8 nations failed. Panic spread as a new screen showed humanity's rank 42-12. Their demotion was now certain. The final match was announced. Humanity would face Species No, 47-73, the Orcs. Sophia's face darkened. She reminded Baron they'd only beaten the Orcs before thanks to Jihan. But Baron dismissed her. This time, they'd fight without him. Suddenly, a system prompt activated. Players from each planet were summoned. In a blink, a battlefield formed. Humanity stood face-to-face with Orc No. 47-72. Baron glanced at his team, just 4 players and a lone Chinese ranker. Still, he believed they could win without Seon Jihan. Igniting red energy, he soared into the sky, proclaiming himself humanity's champion. But before his attack landed, an Orc swiftly decapitated him. His head hit the ground with a sickening thud. The battlefield froze. A message flashed. Humanity player dead. The Orcs surged forward, wiping out the rest with ruthless precision. When they reached Sophia, she trembled and pleaded for her life. The lead Orc smirked and said humans were weak. Then he killed her with a strike. People across the US watched in shock. The system then announced the game ended. Humanity ranked 42-12, lost and was demoted from the Bronze League. There was no lower league. Humanity was considered worthless and expelled from the Space League. As the final words faded, the ground shook violently. A dark portal tore open beneath the earth, crackling with lightning. Alarms blared, the deletion process started. Massive portals erupted worldwide, panic spreading instantly. Jahan stared up, horror in his eyes as the sky twisted unnaturally. From the roaring void, shadowy figures reached out, their cries drowned in static. Then the chilling announcement, humanity deleted, erased. But just before shutdown, the system halted, error detected. Some humans still remained. Jihan floated alone in a dark void, no time, no space, just silence. Then a faint light appeared. Hidden divine arts were stopping his deletion. His heart raced. A strange power inside him was stirring, weak, but with promise. The system couldn't ignore him. He felt regret. If only he'd mastered this power earlier, maybe Korea could have survived. Maybe he could have saved everyone. The system asked one last time, should he get another chance? The votes came in. Seon Jihan would return to the very start of the league. Confused by the mention of the first era, Jihan was suddenly engulfed in light. He woke with a pounding head, dizzy and shaken. At the window, he froze. Seoul was alive and bustling. The sky was blue, the digital clock showed 2020, and South Korea still stood. Below, children played kings and a couple talked excitedly about logging into a new game. Emotion welled up in Jahan's chest, but a smile slowly spread. He had returned. Opening his status window, he saw level 2, the true start of the league. His eyes hardened. With all he remembered, enemies, tactics, betrayals, losses, he had a chance to change everything. This time, he would protect everyone, because now he already knew how it ends, and he was back. In 2020, South Korea proudly stood strong in the global BattleNet rankings thanks to Yoon Sejin, the Sword King. Holding the third spot among the world's top players, he was Korea's symbol of power and honor. His skill kept Korea dominant in Northeast Asia. But in July, everything changed. Sejin shocked the nation by enlisting in a new self-defense force, leaving Korea's team shaken. That moment was the biggest blow the community had ever faced. Then on live TV, Sejin dropped the ultimate shock. He changed his name to Ryuhei and became a Japanese citizen, now known as Ito Ryuhei. Watching the announcement, Jahan's fists clenched, his anger boiling as he stared at the screen. After Sejin left, Korea fell into chaos. Headlines screamed, "Sword King abandons homeland, now Ito Ryuhei." Fear spread as Korea's top spot crumbled. Jahan watched helplessly as the team plummeted tier after tier, losing fast and hard. TV analysts tried to stay hopeful, claiming young players could save Korea's place in the top 20. But Jahan knew better. With no one rising to the challenge and time running out, failure was certain. BattleNet showed no mercy. A system alert shook Korea. The Space League had begun. What started as a game had turned deadly. 2 years in, the horrifying truth came out. Die in-game, die in real life. Countries that fell in rankings were invaded by monsters. Korea, after Sejin's betrayal, was one of them. Cities were wiped out. Survivors whispered the same thing. If the Sword King had stayed, it might have been different. For Jahan, it was personal. Sejin wasn't just a national hero, he was family. His brother-in-law. Rage burned as he shattered Sejin's photo, haunted by questions. Why did his sister love that man? Could she or the country have been saved? Now back in the past, Jahan checked his stats. Weak, just like before. He had wasted his life once, but this time he wouldn't. A system window popped up. Class, classless. Gift. Wanderer's Eyes, rank F, lets him see other players' details. At 18, everyone became a player, but only a few got gifts. Jahan's rank F gift seemed useless, so he used it to gamble on fights, unaware of his true potential, which would unlock after full sync. His stats showed him at level 1, though he remembered being level 2. Then it hit him. He once drank an EXP potion by mistake while drunk and leveled up. A silly accident. Suddenly, the system notified. Achievement points. 100,000. He was stunned. He hadn't done anything that major before the league. Was it for returning to the past? In his inventory, a new item appeared. Achievement points exchange coupon. Reward for the last survivor who dared to challenge again. It was an X-rank benefit, clearly meant for him. He activated it. A new system alert appeared. Achievement store unlocked. Jahan grinned. This was his chance. The store had a few items, but he gambled and upgraded it. Level 2. Inventory expansion. Still useless. He tried again. Level 3. Nickname unlocked. Not enough. With 50,000 points left, he risked 40,000. Level 4. Urgent restoration unlocked. His eyes lit up. He could now repair broken items to perfection. A familiar rush filled him, the same thrill that once fed his gambling addiction. But this time, it felt like destiny. He entered Sejin's old playroom. The system scanned his fingerprint. Family member confirmed. Jahan smirked. Even the machine still thinks I belong. The BattleNet connector opened. His first key revealed a broken item. Dongfeng Shu's spoilt brush. He used urgent restoration. The system restored it. Now he held Dongfeng Shu's brush, an SS-rank tool once used by a sage with ties to the martial god. Suddenly, a system alert. Gangnam Bronze League tutorial begins in 10 seconds. Jahan opened his stats. With a brush, he rewrote them, fusing strength, agility, and vitality into martial power. The secret behind his past life as the rank 7 martial saint. The characters glowed. Time was up. The world shifted. System notification. Player Seon Jihan has entered the BattleNet League. Mission. Survive. Fight in the Colosseum until only 50 remain. Jahan stood still, taking it all in. His stats had changed. Strength, agility, and AP were gone. Replaced by one rare stat, martial power. Unique stat acquired. 10,000 achievement points earned, the system confirmed. He exhaled calmly. The first step was done. With martial power, the Bronze League would be easy. His goal, the nameless divine art. Another alert hit. Logged in without BattleNet connector. Pain set to 100%. He remembered pain could be reduced. Sejin's device lowered it by 99%. He'd need to find it. Suddenly, a new quest appeared. Reach rank 1 in the tutorial. Reward. 1,000 points. This never existed before, but he smiled. With martial power, it was within reach. The game began. Survive, the system said. A player lunged at him with a sword, but Jahan caught the blade between 2 fingers. The attacker froze, stunned. Jahan smirked. Thanks for the first kill. For him, nothing was more exciting than one thing: slaughter. Just before the game, a glimpse into the world of BattleNet revealed the rise of guilds. Organizations built to train and manage elite players. As the game became a global sensation, countries raced to produce champions. In South Korea, corporate-backed guilds like T-Turtle led the charge, gaining early success through sharp strategy and intense training. The Gangnam Bronze League soon became the battleground for rising stars, the debut stage for fresh talent from across these guilds. As the system announced the match's start, all eyes turned to a familiar figure, Jihan's former attacker. Standing alone, he took a deep breath. The Gangnam League was fierce, but he steadied himself. This was his moment. With quiet resolve and growing confidence, he believed luck was on his side, and that he could rise. Du Hyakyu, a rising star of the elite Divergent Guild, had awakened the rare A-rank gift, agility, a talent few possessed. Many believed he had the potential to reach the top 50. On the battlefield, chaos reigned. Players from powerful guilds clashed fiercely, equipped with top-tier gear. Hyakyu wisely held back, knowing one wrong move could end him. This wasn't the Bronze League. It felt far more dangerous. Then he spotted someone odd, Jihan, wearing only sweatpants and a singlet. He looked clueless, like a beginner dropped in by mistake. Hyakyu smirked. A free kill, he thought, and lunged in for an easy point. But just as his blade reached Jihan, something impossible happened. Jihan calmly raised his hand and stopped the sword with 2 fingers. Time froze. Hyakyu was stunned. How could anyone catch a blade swung with A-rank agility? Before he could react, Jihan snatched the sword and tossed it back, knocking him off balance. With a sharp remark, Jihan mocked his gift, questioning how someone like him ended up in the Gangnam Bronze League. Hyakyu's pride crumbled. Rage erupted. He shouted that A-rank agility wasn't a joke, that gifts like his weren't trash. But Jihan didn't even argue. He simply didn't care. That indifference infuriated Hyakyu. Who was this poor-looking guy to look down on him after blocking one strike? Enraged, Hyakyu unleashed his full power, blue aura blazing as he charged in. Jihan stood still, eyes sharp. He felt it, not Hyakyu's speed, but his own sluggishness. Returning to level 2 had weighed him down more than expected. In his prime, this would have been over instantly. Still, his instincts remained razor-sharp. Hyakyu's moves were obvious, his strikes easy to read. When Hyakyu tried a sneak attack from behind, Jihan calmly deflected the sword upward, caught it mid-air, and pressed it to his opponent's neck, ending the fight in a single motion. Hyakyu froze in disbelief, his confidence shattered. This can't be, he muttered as his body began to fade. Before vanishing, he vowed to defeat Jihan next time. Jihan raised an eyebrow. Talking about a rematch when he's dead? What a world. As Hyakyu disappeared into particles, his sword vanished too. A system message appeared. First kill achieved. Plus 100 achievement points. Jihan stood still, reflecting. So weapons vanished with the player. What a waste. Jihan scanned the chaotic arena, his body now fully warmed up. To claim first place, he needed at least 5 more kills. Most ignored the monsters. In BattleNet, killing one only gave 0.1 points, 10 monsters for a single score. Players preferred hunting each other instead. The air rang with clashes. Chasing mob-tag monsters like orcs was seen as a waste, too dangerous for too little reward. Suddenly, Jihan's quest window flashed. A new mission appeared, annihilate the orc mob. Hyakyu noticed it too, puzzled. This wasn't just any group, it was the strongest monster unit in the Colosseum. Jihan saw the orcs, a deadly, organized group, but the reward of 500 achievement points was too good to pass up. Hunting monsters was usually risky and slow, but 500 points was 5 times more than the first kill's reward. That made it worth the danger. Grinning fiercely, Jihan charged at them. The orcs laughed, mocking the half-naked, unarmed man daring to attack. One threw an axe, but Jihan caught it with one hand, eyes sharp and amused. Using the axe, he rushed in and quickly slit 5 throats. Blood splattered as the orcs fell. The others roared in fury, closing in on him. His status confirmed it. 5 down, 25 to go. The monsters roared together, furious and determined to kill Jihan. They charged wildly, but he stayed calm, effortlessly breaking their weapons one by one. Shocked and enraged, they screamed louder, but Jihan's strikes shattered their arms again and again, leaving them confused and losing hope. With a cold sneer, Jihan mocked their sloppy ambush. He grabbed a broken axe, stepped forward, and faced a panicked monster. Their weapons clashed, and the monster's axe shattered instantly. Jihan scoffed at their weak gear, mocking how such massive creatures carried such flimsy weapons. The monsters whispered in shock. Jihan's weapon was broken too. Fueled by rage, they charged together to finish him. But Jihan stayed calm. With a powerful stomp, the ground cracked beneath them, throwing them off balance. In that instant, he drew his sword and struck with lightning speed, cutting down several monsters before they could react. One monster, frozen in disbelief, called Jihan a monster himself. Without hesitation, Jihan ended him too. Suddenly, a status window popped up. He cleared the quest, earned 500 achievement points, and leveled up. Surprised by the mid-game level up, Jihan realized it might be because of his low level. Smiling, he seized the chance to upgrade his stats. Jihan's status window showed martial power at 5, mana at 1, and 1 unused stat point. His class was martial class, and his gift, the Wanderer's Eye, rank F, let him gauge other players' skills. His nickname was still missing. He knew martial power was special. It combined strength, agility, and stamina into one, doubling physical abilities compared to other stats. Reaching 30 would unlock a secret path to the legendary unnamed divine arts. But improving it was tough, needing intense combat and strict training. Stat points only raised the growth limit, not the stat itself. So when Jihan saw his martial power rising already, he was stunned. This wasn't supposed to happen so fast. Usually it took weeks or months. A faint smile crossed his face. If this continued, he was definitely on the right path. An arrow suddenly flew toward Jihan, but he dodged it instinctively. Turning, he saw a female archer and a male warrior closing in. The archer acknowledged his dodge, but the warrior shrugged it off as luck. The archer urged a quick finish. The match was almost over. The warrior reminded her of their deal. Whoever landed the final blow would claim the reward. Jihan quickly sized them up. They were clearly teamed, a common tactic in survival maps. Spotting the Turtle Guild logo on the warrior's armor, he knew they had strong coordination, the balanced mix of close and range fighters from a top guild. His status window flashed, only 60 survivors left, and the tutorial was ending soon. Many had already fallen. Jihan realized dodging might be enough to survive, but these two were targeting him. They thought he was an easy kill. The warrior casually offered the archer a deal, dinner in exchange for letting her take the kill. She sharply declined. Meanwhile, Jihan checked the scoreboard. 4 kills, barely holding first place and determined to stay there. The archer taunted him for being young and reckless. Before she finished, Jihan struck like a shadow, his sword at her neck, and in one swift move, her head fell. Jihan stared at his glowing status window. Martial power had reached 6. Excited, he whispered that now was the perfect time to test his strength. Only 58 survivors remained, and the tutorial was ending soon. The lone warrior watched, panicked, demanding how Jihan had killed so easily. Without a word, Jihan moved forward, sword ready. Jihan's blade struck the warrior's B-rank Turtle Guild armor, but it barely scratched him. The warrior smirked, confident his armor made him untouchable. Unfazed, Jihan tightened his grip and hammered the same weak spot again and again. Slowly, the metal bent and cracked, a hole forming under his relentless assault. The warrior's smirk faded into terror as he yelled at Jihan for his madness. But Jihan just sneered, mocking the warrior's pride and flashy armor. Armor means nothing if you can't handle real pain, he said coldly, pressing his attack without mercy. Far from the battlefield, inside a high-tech control room, the Divergent Guild watched Jihan's fight on a massive screen. Lee Heian, head of Human Resources 3rd Division, sat impressed beside her bodyguard, Lim Gaeon. Heian noted how far beyond expectations Jihan's skills were, and was relieved Gaeon hadn't been sent into battle with him, or she might have been eliminated early. Gaeon agreed that Jihan was dangerous and suggested avoiding him next time. But Heian refused. Pride wouldn't allow retreat. She ordered Gaeon to face Jihan directly and defeat him if they ever met again. Emphasizing the fight's importance for rankings and data, Gaeon bowed, quietly repeating Jihan's name. He felt familiar. She was almost sure she'd seen him before, though the memory hadn't yet surfaced. The Divergent Guild was known for its elite talents, and Lim Gaeon stood out as their brightest star, an S-rank gift holder destined for first place. She dominated every match with flawless strategy and skill, seemingly unstoppable. But everything changed when Seon Jihan suddenly took the top spot, pushing Lim Gaeon to second. Meanwhile, in the Turtle Guild scout team, shock rippled through the ranks as they stared at the unexpected leaderboard. One member couldn't believe what he saw. Seon Jihan was top-ranked at just level 2, with no gear, no guild, and no allies. He'd started late wearing only sweatpants and barely armed, yet somehow had 6 kills. How was this possible? Who was Seon Jihan? Cut to Jihan relaxed on his sofa, calmly watching his status window. A system alert popped up. He'd secured first place in the tutorial, earning a 50% experience boost and jumping up 3 levels. Jihan smiled, satisfied with his progress and quick leveling despite being a rookie. A system notification reminded him the tutorial didn't grant any GP, but he was already planning ahead. He poured all his remaining stat points into martial power, focusing on strength. Instantly, his level jumped from 6 to 9. Along with this, he earned a nickname, Tutorial Conqueror, for his impressive League performance. Curious, he checked its effects. The title gave him +1 to all attributes in the Bronze League, but reduced EXP gain by 20%. Jihan didn't mind. The stat boost would give him a solid advantage in every battle. Now stronger across the board, he reviewed his updated profile. Level, stats, nickname, rank, and achievements. All clear and ready for his next move. Jihan reviewed his build. 10 points in martial power gave him an easy path through most Bronze League challenges. Promotion to Silver waited until level 25, so steady growth was the key. But now came the crucial choice. His official class. Warrior, Archer, Mage, or Support. In his past life, he picked Warrior, strong and reliable. This time, things were different. Thanks to the hidden achievement store, he could buy the Warrior class later for 10,000 points, freeing him from old limits. Confident and unbound, Jihan made his choice. Suddenly, the calm game world erupted. The eerie shrieks of zombies filled the air, their monstrous forms surging forward in an unstoppable horde. A system notification popped up. The mission was defense. Protect the crystal at all costs. With hordes of undead swarming, survival was the only goal until just 5 towers remained. The battle had begun, marking a new chapter for Seon Jihan. Nearby, Lim Gaeon appeared, surrounded by grotesque zombies. Even in a virtual world, the overwhelming undead felt unsettling. 2 other players joined her, one frustrated by the map, the other confirming it was a defense mission. Gaeong sized up the team, an archer from the LK group with B-grade gear, and a mage with high-end equipment but no guild ties. Their gear was solid for this stage. Yet Gaeong knew the key wasn't the archer or mage. It was the support. Defense missions demanded teamwork and endurance, and the support's role would be crucial to survive the long fight. A blinding surge of radiant light struck from above, forcing Gaeong to shield her eyes. When the glow faded, Seon Jihan emerged, standing tall among the team. Gaeong was stunned. Could it really be him? Calmly, Jihan confirmed their mission, defense. The scene flashed back 20 minutes earlier. Jihan's status window warned that his chosen support class was incompatible, needing a second confirmation. Yet he picked it without hesitation, not for strategy, but for a personal reason. The support class unlocked a rare power called Divine Power, essential for growing a unique stat critical to his future. This stat couldn't be raised by normal training. Only rare stat points or a secret method could improve it. Jihan wasn't about to waste his precious points. He knew of a hidden, guaranteed way few even knew existed. Back in the present, Gaeong stared at Jihan in disbelief. He'd chosen to be a support? A mage nearby sneered and laughed mockingly before turning furious. How could they be stuck with someone like Jihan? His worn-out clothes looked like a joke next to the mage's expensive gear. The mage's anger exploded as he cursed, claiming he wasted his premium equipment on a worthless teammate. Refusing to continue, he insulted Jihan loudly, calling him filthy and declaring the mission a waste without him. The archer tried to calm him, but the mage stormed off, leaving the group behind. Gaeong sighed. With a troll like that, their mission was going to be much harder than expected. What happened next shocked everyone. Without a word, Jihan grabbed the mage by the neck and lifted him off the ground with ease. The mage panicked, yelling to be released. Coldly, Jihan let go, but instead of setting him down, he threw the mage off the castle wall into the swarm of hungry zombies below. The undead instantly tore the falling man apart. Jihan turned calmly and said anyone unwilling to join was free to leave. The rest would handle things without them. The archer and Gaeong stood frozen, stunned by what they just witnessed. The mage was resurrected and returned to the battlefield, dropping to his knees with trembling resolve. He swore to do his best. He'd seen enough death and didn't want to die again. It was Kim Gyu-hyuk. He had already died twice in the Bronze League's defense game, where each player had only 3 lives. One more death meant the end for him, at a brutal penalty. Losing levels and expensive skills. Seon Jihan looked down at him and asked what he meant. Panicked, Kim promised to work harder. Jihan smirked at his quick change of heart and dared him to attack with fire spells again. Nervously, Kim agreed, reminding everyone that as a level 15 fire mage, he was still a valuable asset against mobs. Gaeong recognized him immediately, Kim Gyu-hyuk, once a respected member of the 10 Great Guilds. But after failing the Silver Promotion Leagues 4 times, he lost his way, becoming a bitter troublemaker. On the battlefield, the mage demanded one thing to cooperate, an apology from Jihan. The archer tried to calm things, urging peace, but Gyu-hyuk's anger boiled beneath the surface, cursing Jihan silently. Without warning, Jihan grabbed him by the collar, voice cold and sharp. If Gyu-hyuk wanted an apology, he had to earn it. Before the mage could react, Jihan slammed him down and struck him hard with his weapon. Jihan reminded him it was Gyu-hyuk who started this fight, so why should he apologize? He told the mage to die, and if he came back, to bring some sense with him. A system window flashed. The mage was dead. Gaeong and the archer were stunned. None of them thought Jihan would actually kill the mage. The archer, confused, stared at him in disbelief. Meanwhile, zombies began scaling the castle walls. On the other side, the enemy fire mage unleashed blazing waves, holding them back with ease. His teammates praised him, even joking about roasting marshmallows. Hearing that, Jihan's teammate echoed the joke, then sighed. "This is why we needed a mage," he muttered. "We're screwed without one." He regretted not working with a mage earlier and blamed Jihan's pride for their current mess. But Jihan said nothing. Instead, he opened his status window. A new quest appeared. Kill 1,000 zombies solo. Reward, 3,000 achievement points. Jihan spotted the number minus 1,000 zombies alone. It seemed impossible with little time left, but the points were too good to pass up. Lim Gaeong watched him, judging harshly. He ignored strategy, acted alone, and chose a support class despite strong stats. Even casual players avoided such reckless moves. She wondered why the Divergent Guild recruited him. The archer, furious, shouted at Jihan to stop ignoring him or fight alone. Jihan paused and asked if fighting alone was really possible. The archer was confused. Jihan thought if he could separate the zombies, maybe he could handle them by himself. Gaeong stepped up, offering to lead, and told Jihan to stay behind her. Even if they might lose, she wanted to take responsibility. But Jihan stopped her calmly, saying he would take the front and asked her to protect the archer. Suddenly, a strange zombie climbed up. Its head looked like liquid. The archer panicked, shouting that physical attacks wouldn't work on this one. Jihan stepped forward confidently, swinging his weapon and striking a flying, bloody zombie. Mana sparks exploded as the archer and Gaeong watched in awe. She recognized the power, a rare white sacred flame, possibly divine. More zombies rushed in, snarling fiercely. Jihan swiftly sliced through one, beheading it with a glowing trail of mana. Though the challenge seemed impossible, killing 1,000 zombies, Jihan was determined to try. A system notification popped up. 6 out of 1,000 zombies defeated. Jihan charged in, cutting down zombies with precision. 12 kills, then 19, then 26. Regular attacks barely scratched the bloody ones, so he unleashed divine power, striking one in the head with perfect aim. From the sidelines, a teammate watched in awe, realizing he'd misjudged Jihan. His quiet nature had masked real strength. Gaeon, observing from afar, was equally impressed. Jihan wielded divine power mid-battle with ease and deadly accuracy, always targeting the head. Then the system alert appeared. In a fulfilling special condition, his divine power rose from level 6 to 7. A faint glow lit up his weapon. Smirking, he readjusted his grip, stronger and more confident than ever. Back in 2010, divine items were seen as sacred treasures, sold at high prices for their rumored secrets. But a decade later, those secrets never surfaced, especially in non-combat items, and their value plummeted. Most people didn't even know such tools existed. Then not long ago, Sophia, a priestess from the American First Guild, casually revealed that she boosted her divine power using one of these forgotten items. Curious, Jihan asked how. She explained the item came from a guild branch and worked only during training. By holding it and praying over time, she had absorbed divine power. That's how she became a priestess. The method varied by item, but it worked. Jihan brushed his bangs aside, still stunned no one had discovered such an easy path to power. Sophia just shrugged. Rumors existed, but divine items were nearly impossible to find. She had taken full advantage during training era, though she humbly denied monopolizing them. Still, Jihan realized this was rare knowledge shared by only one other person she kept mentioning. Later, Jihan returned to the Sword King's penthouse and found a room filled with divine items, silent and powerless. The system confirmed they were deactivated. He knew only one person could gather them all, his late sister, Songjia, once Korea's top support alongside Yoon Se-jin. Quietly dressing, he noticed a familiar steel staff, an E-rank divine artifact his sister used. Once meant for priests to discipline cultists, it seemed perfect for smashing zombies now. During his next battle, the system flashed again. The staff's rank had risen, letting him absorb even more divine power. Its weight felt perfect in his hands. From afar, Gaeon watched Jihan with sharp eyes. His strength impressed her, but his flawless control in battle stunned her more. Nearby, Archer Nam Jun-seo pointed excitedly at the horizon. The tower had fallen. Their group now ranked in the top 5. Should we join the front lines? He asked. Suddenly, a zombie lunged at them. Without flinching, Gaeon dashed forward, slicing it down with swift, clean strikes. Jihan turned, startled. Her moves were familiar. The Plum Blossom Sword, it was Gaeon. He remembered now she had once been the Sword King briefly. A legend whose story ended in tragedy. She was killed by Ryuhai. Gaeon, whose life Jihan had once saved, called out, asking if he'd accept their help. Together, they could climb the ranks. He checked the status window. 5th place, 398 kills, and 1 hour 28 minutes left. Confident Gaeon could handle it, he told them to keep fighting. The rest was theirs. Then, without hesitation, Jihan leaped from the tower. His teammates stared in shock as he fell. Mid-air, he gripped his weapon tighter, surging it with energy. He was ready. Head lure in the undead and destroy them all. The archer shouted in shock. They'd taken 1st place. Jihan's final blow had shattered the tower, and the system confirmed it. Their team was the last one standing. Mission complete. Out of 1,000 zombies, Jihan had taken down 560. He climbed to the top with the system's help. Gunso cheered, praising Jihan's performance as incredible. Jihan simply nodded. He'd grown stronger, so the risk had been worth it. The archer laughed, calling Jihan the best and thanking him for dragging him this far. Jihan, knowing he'd likely never get this mission or weapon again, casually suggested teaming up again. From above, Baeyong stared in disbelief. How could a lower-level support player pull this off alone? It felt like a system bug. As the archer lit up and disappeared, Gaeon remained frozen, still trying to understand what she had just witnessed. As Jihan prepared to leave and claim his reward, Gaeon called out. He glanced at her, puzzled. He didn't recall meeting the famed Plum Blossom Sword before. But Gaeon had already decided. Someone like Jihan, with his power and reputation, couldn't be ignored. Representing the Divergent Guild, she nervously asked for his phone number, then quickly realized her mistake. She hadn't even introduced herself. Flustered, she explained her intent to recruit him. Before she could finish, Jihan politely cut her off, claiming he didn't remember his number. Gaeon blinked in surprise. Jihan added he'd share it next time and vanished from the tower. Left behind, Gaeon stood puzzled, thinking he'd rejected her. Meanwhile, Jihan walked alone, realizing he truly didn't know his Korean number, just his United States one. Still, he chuckled at the awkward exchange. Maybe he should have asked for her number instead. Joining a guild wasn't in Jihan's plans, leveling up came first. He checked his status. 1 level gained and 1,500 gear points earned. Not bad, especially with his divine power increasing too. Curious, he opened the gear shop. An alien weapon, a hammer, and gloves caught his eye, but all cost 3,000 points. Too expensive. Back in 2020, things had been cheaper. Without wasting time, he headed home, hoping to find usable gear in his sister's closet. In the elevator, he selected his floor, mind-focused. But as the apartment door opened, he froze. A pair of shoes in the hallway made his heart stop. Groceries slipped from his hands as memories surged. Regrets from a life already lived. This was one of his deepest regrets. Hands shaking, he stepped inside. There she was, his niece, Yonsei, alive. She casually asked about his hangover, unaware of the storm inside him. Jihan could barely speak. He had waited so long for this moment just to see her again. In his past life, Jihan had sat broken on the couch, bottle in hand, while she, bright and unwavering, promised to protect him. Her smile and words had once lit up his dark world, and she truly had kept her promise. She always asked him to believe in her, and he did. Now, with quiet regret, he apologized in his heart for failing her. He missed her more than words could say. Her voice called out again, breaking his thoughts. With a soft smile, she told him to go wash his hands. Sia, Jahan's niece and his sister's daughter, had just turned 18. When Jahan asked if her GU sleepover was over, she laughed, saying she left early. Jahan had helped raise her since she was born, becoming her closest family after losing his own. Now she said only the two of them would be home. He muttered her name, frustrated, and asked if she had spoken to her father. She hesitated, then revealed a shocking call. Her father had fallen in love and claimed everything would now change. He wasn't asking for understanding. The woman he loved didn't want Sia around, and he agreed to leave her behind. Stunned, Sia asked how he could choose love over his own daughter. But he ignored her and ended the call. Jahan silently cursed the man. He'd always been selfish, chasing women and abandoning responsibilities. Sia then pointed at his shattered portrait. Did you break it? Jahan nodded, saying he lost his temper. But still, he added, he's your father. Then why did you break it? She asked again. Clenching her fist and forcing a smile, she said she wanted to break it herself and insisted she was fine. Jahan knew her well. Despite her mother's death and her father's betrayal, she always smiled and cared more about others than herself. But she didn't have to anymore. Gently, he placed a hand on her head and pulled her close. She was an adult now, strong enough even to take care of him. Startled, Sia buried her face in his chest as he promised to protect her. She didn't have to push so hard anymore. With a peaceful smile, she teased that he smelled like sweat. Meanwhile, in Gangnam's divergent guild, Haeun laughed behind her hand while Gaeong told her not to hold back. Haeun called Jihan adorable, teasing Gaeong about getting rejected after asking for a number, and the guy didn't even remember it. Gaeong admitted defeat, saying she lacked her boss's elegance and looked more like a man. Haeun realized that was the real problem. Gaeong didn't even know how popular she was. As they walked, other guild staff glanced their way. One quietly wondered if the Plum Blossom sword Gaeong might be worth asking out. His colleague warned he gets sliced in half. Haeun waved it off, telling Gaeong to ask others for opinions. They convinced her. They entered the break room, where Haeun relaxed with a drink. Gaeong asked about recruiting Jihan. Haeun was surprised. There was no plan, just pressure from the elders to decide quickly. Gaeun insisted Jihan was too talented to miss. Suddenly, Haeun's phone buzzed. Jihan had gone live. No battles today, just a stream. Gaeong teased Haeun about watching gambling streams, but Haeun defended it as strategy analysis. Then Haeun's eyes widened. Jihan appeared on screen, looking straight at the camera, asking if the stream was working. C said everything was visible on the phone. Gaeong stared at her boss in disbelief. Was she really watching his stream? Haeun tried to deny it, but the proof was clear. On screen, Jihan boldly declared he was the Sword King's son-in-law. Commentators were stunned. Could it be true? The twin sword statue behind him proved he was on the restricted Sword Palace rooftop, accessible only to Sejin family members. Jihan told Sia to step back, and she did. The chat exploded with debates about Sejin. Then Jihan focused energy in his legs, stunning everyone. Suddenly, he slammed his foot down, sending shockwaves through the ground. The crowd gasped. He followed with a powerful punch, striking the sword statue. Reactions flooded the stream, likes, dislikes, and viewers skyrocketed. The system confirmed his achievement. Jihan's jacket tore from the energy blast, and he smiled, ready to reveal the truth about Sejin's citizenship. Battle2, the top live streaming platform on Battle.net, had transformed achievement rewards. Viewers and engagement now directly boosted a player's success. For Jihan, who boldly claimed to be the Sword King's son-in-law, it was the perfect stage to grab every prize. As achievements popped up and viewers surged, one notification stood out: over 100,000 dislikes. Commentators gasped, wondering if Jihan had really destroyed the legendary twin sword statue. Calm and unfazed, Jihan expected the backlash. Among the angry fans was one fierce critic, a Sword King devotee, furious that Jihan desecrated the national symbol. The fan feared the Sword King might never return. This reflected the madness of the Sejin Crazy fan club. Once loyal supporters turned hostile after Sejin vanished. They blamed Sia, Sejin's rebellious daughter, believing she must be punished to bring their hero back. The public needed someone to blame, and Sia became their scapegoat. Taking a deep breath, Jihan addressed the live stream, ready to take on their hatred himself. To make his point, he smashed the shattered statue again despite the commentators' protests and declared, "Idol Ryuhai will not return." He then held up his phone and played a private recording, Ryuhai admitting to his daughter that he was leaving for love, even if it meant abandoning her. It was the price of being with the woman he loved. The chat exploded. Some cried slander, others called it fake. Then C stepped into frame, hand on her chest. She confessed her heartbreak, but said she couldn't accept anything from a man who left his country and family. He had left her the Sword Palace, but she would donate it to the nation. Viewers were stunned. Some thought she was crazy, but she explained. She wanted the property to help Korean players and promised more details soon. Just 30 minutes earlier, she'd been shocked when Jihan suggested the idea. Shigen pinched his cheek, thinking he was drunk. Jihan winced, assuring her he was serious. With folded hands, she asked why he'd give everything away. Jihan, towel in hand, replied with rare clarity. He wasn't sure he could convince her. Donating such a valuable house to the nation was no small ask, but he had no choice. He had to protect Sia. In the original timeline, Sejin destroyed Korea. Public outrage led to all of Sejin's assets being seized. Sia, hounded and homeless, eventually took her own life. To avoid that future, Jae-han chose to give up the house willingly. He couldn't explain that he came from the future. She still saw him as a useless drunk. After a pause, she agreed. When Jae-han asked if she was serious, she replied that he was the one insisting. He faltered, calling it pointless, but she trusted him. He hadn't been this sure of himself in years. He was stunned by her strength. She still called him uncle, and he felt nothing but admiration. Chaos filled the comment section as viewers debated if they'd been fooled. Jae-han watched the insults pour in satisfied. The hate was shifting to him. Sia would finally be safe. This was his final act, sealing his own fate. Leaning into the camera, he called out Sejin, exposing him as a failure who ran to Japan. The commentators protested, but Jae-han pressed on, vowing to destroy everything Sejin built there. With the dramatic grip of his sleeve, he fueled the fire between Korea and Japan. Sia, shocked, whispered if he really had to go this far. He calmly brushed off her concerns. As she watched him, she realized he had changed completely. Jae-han scratched his cheek, knowing he'd changed since dying and coming back. He admitted he probably seemed like a freeloader, but Sia quickly shut that down. Before he could reply, the doorbell rang. She stiffened, fearing the worst, but Jae-han assured her it was just time to start earning money. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, tensions between Korea and Japan were rising. Koreans were furious over losing their hero, the Sword King, to another country. On a live stream, Jae-han had publicly challenged Sejin, fueling the media storm. Sejin, now in Japan, read the backlash, while the news speculated about the mysterious woman he left Korea for. Shizuru stood beside him, asking if he was okay. Though he insisted he was fine and asked her to stop calling him Sejin, he had chosen a new identity. She refused. Gently holding him, she whispered that no name could erase who he truly was, Korea's top player, the Sword King, and hers. Soon, an unexpected guest arrived at Jae-han's home. Park Yoon-sik, a senior official from the BattleNet administration. Calm and collected, Jae-han welcomed him in. Park noted that Jae-han seemed to have expected him. Jae-han nodded, saying the situation was serious enough to warrant government involvement, and Park was the obvious choice to handle it. Inside the house, Park and Sia exchanged polite greetings while Jae-han watched with a knowing smirk. Since Yoon Sejin's departure, no officials had visited, except Park Yoon-sik, who had always shown quiet support for them both. Now it was time to get answers. Over tea, Park admitted that while Jae-han's broadcast was aggressive and it forced the government to face reality, the Sword King wasn't coming back. Still, this truth couldn't go public yet, not with the Korea-Japan match approaching. Jae-han cut to the chase. Park hadn't come just to talk. He was here to ask Jae-han to cancel his donation to the Sword Palace. Accepting it would mean officially giving up on the Sword King's return, something the government wasn't ready to admit. Jae-han's sharp words left manager Park speechless. Was this truly the same man once lost to unemployment and debt? The change was undeniable. Park admitted Jae-han was right. While they still hoped for the Sword King's return, the government had to move forward. They proposed a consigned management deal. Jae-han would oversee the Sword Palace as a temporary guardian. Sia found the term confusing, but Jae-han understood quickly. He asked if he'd have to give it back if the Sword King returned. Park confirmed he would. The government also wanted Jae-han and Sia to stay at the palace during this time. Park handed over a detailed contract, urging them to review it carefully and respond soon. Park recognized the careful thought behind the agreement. It was a well-balanced proposal. Jae-han, who had already planned to give up the Sword Palace eventually, saw no reason to resist if the government offered support in the meantime. He agreed in principle, but said there was one condition before he could sign. Curious, Park asked what he meant. Even Sia looked intrigued. Jae-han smiled mysteriously, keeping his request hidden as the scene faded. Meanwhile, elsewhere in BattleNet, chaos erupted. Popular streamer BJ Goldenlight had gone live, standing on the head of the bronze statue at the Coliseum. The chat exploded with laughter and disbelief. With his signature flair, BJ greeted his audience. In this dusty, blood-stained arena, he declared there was always one shining star, the fearless travel guru himself, BJ Light. BJ Goldenlight made a flashy leap from the statue's head, landing in style and sending the chat into a frenzy. Viewers laughed at his visible underwear mid-jump, while others cheered, thrilled to see him return. One even donated 100 GP, thanking him for another fun and insightful stream. Grinning wide, BJ played it up. Someone had donated before the game even started. He'd vowed to make it unforgettable. But not everyone was happy. As someone in the crowd recognized him, the mood soured. That guy again, one muttered with frustration. Another nearly cried, cursing his return. His over-the-top presence irritated them deeply. The camera zoomed in, introducing him. Good-looking, energetic, and infamous. What's a Goldie talent, BJ had tanked his rank on purpose, trolling games in the name of content. Now a bronze-tier menace, he kept his high-end gear just to dominate weaker players for fun. When called out for going too far, he shrugged it off. But to many, he wasn't just a troll. He was a sociopath. BJ Goldenlight quickly shifted the tone, riling up the crowd and asking who'd be today's first victim. Scanning the player list, one name caught his eye, Sung Jae-han. The chat exploded with mockery. Jae-han was labeled a loser, a nobody who didn't belong. Seizing the moment, BJ approached with mock praise, calling him the Sword King's brother-in-law and the strongest bronze player. He pushed for an interview, hoping to boost his stream with Jihan's recent fame. Jihan, unimpressed, recognized BJ as one of those noisy streamers he found annoying. But seeing a chance to gain BattleTube achievements, he stayed calm and simply walked away. BJ clutched his chest in mock pain while the chat laughed, saying Jihan acted like he was the Sword King. BJ suddenly noticed Jihan was also streaming. Panic hit. Was he accidentally promoting Jihan instead of stealing viewers? He cursed under his breath. Then a system alert popped up. A mission from Sword King LUV. Kill Sung Jihan and make him rank last. The reward? 2,000 GP. BJ was shocked. That was 2 million won. Chat exploded. Viewers demanded he take the mission for the honor of the Sword King clan. The reward kept rising. 10,000, 20,000. It jumped again, minus 31,978 GP. BJ could hardly believe it. Just as the game began and all players were summoned, the mission updated one last time with a staggering reward. BJ collapsed in fake despair, yelling if I'd waited, it could have hit 50,000 GP. Viewers mocked BJ. Some blamed the wine, others laughed at the crazy money offers. Then the diehard fan returned with a bold promise. 10,000 GP if BJ killed Jihan. BJ's mood shifted instantly. The sincerity hit him. Iron Will activated. Chat exploded with laughter. Of course, he got serious when money was involved. With pride and focus, BJ charged. Sword drawn, he declared this was it. Golden light would end the game, become a god of death. A system alert flashed. His body accelerated forward. BJ struck from behind, but Jihan blocked it with an unexpected weapon. A D-grade cooking set. Not just any item, it was a divine relic once used to cook heresy. When paired with a kitchen knife, its true power awakened. Recognizing the strength behind BJ's swing, Jihan responded in kind with a sincere strike of his own. In an instant, BJ Golden Light was dead. Viewers were stunned. What was that weapon? Was that Sword Kai? A bronze-tier player using such power was unheard of. And if it was divinity, was Jihan a support type? The system answered with an update. Player Sung Jihan has unlocked his first skill. Achievement points plus 100. Calmly, Jihan stood amidst the chaos, thinking it had been a while since he last cooked. After falling in battle, BJ Golden Light rose again from the depths, his voice fierce. He described plunging into total darkness. No sound, no light, nothing. Yet, in that void, his inner light grew stronger. With fiery determination, he declared Golden Light had returned for all to see. Viewers were shocked, flooding the chat with questions. BJ revealed his secret, the Resurrection Cross, a one-time revival item with strict limits. But the chat quickly turned cold, mocking him. They scoffed that Sung Jihan had already escaped last place, making BJ's comeback pointless. Some even cursed him. Humble but unbroken, BJ admitted his mistake. Head let his guard down and shown weakness. Still, he vowed to fight back and get Sung Jihan's head soon. BJ didn't notice Jihan silently close behind him. When BJ finally turned, he froze. Jihan's smirking face was all he saw before a swift strike from Jihan's cooking set landed. The system flashed. Player Sung Jihan achieved his double kill. Jihan paused, thinking how rare it was to see the SMU system used these days, mostly abandoned due to its flaws. Today's game felt different, more chaotic, and maybe watched by a bigger crowd since the main event was near. His gaze lifted to the stands where cold, unblinking elves watched him. Viewers gasped at the sight of real elves observing so closely. Jihan's expression darkened. These elves had helped destroy humanity. He'd confront them someday, but not now. His attention had to stay on what was right in front of him. The battle's shock sent other players fleeing in panic. They knew this wasn't the time for quarrels. Sung Jihan had just crushed Golden Light effortlessly. Jihan sighed, frustrated by his slow progress. Only a few D-grade relics so far, no revelation triggered yet. He needed more action, more targets. Then a new mission popped up. Subdue all goblins around the goblin champion. Jihan's eyes sparkled with excitement. Finally, a real hunt. He charged in, swinging his cooking set weapon with deadly precision. Goblins screamed and scattered, but Jihan showed no mercy. One by one, they fell, until none remained. The system quickly confirmed the double cooking set grade D was working. Jihan nodded. He'd figured out the right way to use it. Break the skull, then pierce the heart. It took longer than he wanted, but the lesson was valuable. Maybe some goblins could have survived if he'd known earlier, but the hunt wasn't over yet. Suddenly, a massive goblin champion appeared from the shadows. 3 meters tall, far stronger and smarter than the others. The system gave a long rundown on its abilities, which Jihan barely registered. Without hesitation, Jihan struck. One powerful hit from his club toppled the giant. Then, with a swift stab from his kitchen knife, he pierced its heart. As it collapsed, Jihan sneered. It was just a big goblin after all. The system confirmed Jihan's reward minus 500 achievement points and a new divine power. A notification revealed his weapons, the club and kitchen knife, were actually a double cooking set. Alone, they were weak, but together, their true power awakened. However, the set's grade dropped from D to E, reminding Jihan he still had much to learn. Glancing at his weapons, Jihan realized he could use divine power one last time, but monster hunting was still slow. Behind him, chaos erupted as players fought each other. Just as he expected, when monsters weren't enough, players became his next targets. Energy surged from Jaihan, radiating a deadly aura. Stream viewers panicked. One tagged, one breath master warned everyone to hide. Jaihan might not be showy on stream, but his skills made him a terrifying force. In Gangnam Gu Seoul, Yuksum Dong, a popular BJ, watched Jaihan's broadcast with growing jealousy. Jaihan's raw power shattered the BJ's earlier belief that showmanship mattered more than strength. Jaihan wasn't just skilled, he was insanely strong. The BJ muttered, stunned by Jaihan's stats. Strength 33, stamina 36, mana 34, an average of 35 far beyond the Bronze League's zero limit. It was like watching a walking hack. Then a system notification popped up. Player Sung Jaihan scored a kill. The strange pig-like sound of the victim caught the BJ off guard. But the real shock came when Jaihan used his knife to decapitate 4 or 5 players in one strike. The BJ's eyes widened, unable to believe the brutal massacre he just witnessed. Viewers flooded the chat, one called Dried Yellow Croaker even called it art, 4 heads flying with a single sprint. The system roared with updates. Double kill, triple kill, quad kill, then pentakill. On the battlefield, an archer and mage, sensing danger, dropped their feud and teamed up. The archer shot an arrow at Jaihan, but he dodged effortlessly. Fear turned to nervous laughter. Then Jaihan took them down without mercy. Another double kill notification popped up, leaving viewers stunned. Some called Jaihan insane. One even compared him to the infamous Yoon Se-jin. Suddenly, his grade E double cooking set reacted. He gained a divine power, but its grade dropped to F at the same time. A hidden quest was cleared, 10 kills in the Colosseum. His reward? 5,000 achievement points. Despite the progress, Jaihan wasn't satisfied. He needed something game-changing. That's when the system announced an epic quest. Find and provoke the Shadow Queen, hidden on the Colosseum map. The rewards were shocking, minus 50,000 points and the attention of a constellation, a divine sponsor from Battle.net's highest ranks. This was the kind of quest only Diamond League players got, and it was now his. If he could win over one constellation, more would follow. But first, he had to find the Shadow Queen, hidden among countless elves. The real hunt was just beginning. Some Jaihan's 10-kill streak inside the Colosseum made headlines across the Battle.net community. It marked the first domestic record since the legendary Yoon Se-jin, shocking players and fans alike. Social media buzzed with the news, spreading across countless communities. The attention skyrocketed his popularity, gaining him over 10,000 subscribers and nearly 4,000 concurrent live viewers. Ironically, the Sword King clan, which once sought to suppress him, now found themselves supporting him instead. Their hostility shifted elsewhere to BJ Golden Light. That same post's comment section turned hostile, filled with threats and disbelief. Some users raged, demanding retribution. Others mocked Golden Light's contribution, stating he barely had 20% of Jaihan's kill participation, yet shamelessly promoted him on stream. Rip Bozo became a running joke. Witnessing this, BJ Golden Light couldn't help but laugh, acknowledging the community's sentiment had completely flipped. Realizing the tide could be reversed, he embraced the situation. From that moment on, he declared himself a full-time supporter of Sung Jaihan. He became a die-hard fan, swearing to make Jaihan the biggest Battle 2 star, even dreaming of becoming his editor, though Jaihan had never asked for one. Back in Jaihan's room, Sia sat on the sofa, eyes wide with amazement. She couldn't believe what she had just witnessed. Jaihan's performance had stunned her. His strength had grown to the point of overwhelming his opponents like a smurf bullying low-ranked players. She remarked on how pitiful it felt for the others. Jaihan simply noted that the world of matches was cruel and unforgiving. Sia found his tone arrogant but amusing. She brought up the countless people trying to donate to him and questioned why he was blocking them. Glancing at his status window, Jaihan realized he had forgotten to enable donations. Stia then suggested raising the minimum donation amount, concerned about constant alerts interrupting the stream. Jaihan agreed and considered setting the baseline to 10k GP. Stia pointed out that it equated to 10 million won and asked if that was too much. Jaihan simply mused if that was considered cheap. Just then, he recalled that an epic quest had appeared during the Colosseum event, one to find and taunt the Shadow Queen. But locating her among the crowd seemed impossible. Sia, flashing a confident smile, offered her help. She recognized the look on Jaihan's face and encouraged him to lean on her. Jaihan couldn't help but smile, thinking she resembled Nuna too much. He decided to test Sia's abilities, assigning her the quest to find the Shadow Queen. Stia had never heard of the title and asked what it was. Jaihan admitted he didn't know either, except that she was among the spectators. Intrigued by the mysterious nature of the quest, Sia excitedly agreed. She promised to scour the replay footage thoroughly to find the elusive figure. Jaihan acknowledged her help and placed his trust in her. After that, Jaihan returned to his room, feeling slightly guilty for asking Sia to handle something so tedious. Finding a single person in that crowd felt like searching for a needle in a haystack. But he trusted Sia's goodwill and decided to focus on the things he had been putting off. A system prompt appeared before him, asking if he wanted to add a class. Jaihan recalled that he had purchased a class slot using the achievement points he collected. Now it was time to make his choice. Presented with 3 options, Warrior, Archer, and Mage, Jaihan chose Mage. The system confirmed his advancement and a vibrant purple aura swirled around him. He immediately felt the flow of a new power coursing through his heart. Unlike divine power, it was something entirely distinct. Jaehan had chosen mage following support for a reason. He wanted to unlock a unique stat obtainable only by combining those two classes. That stat was called Force. Jaehan's thoughts drifted to a moment before his regression. He recalled a drunken rant by his master Baron, who once spoke of the force of power born from the perfect fusion of magic power and divine power. It was rare, nearly impossible to obtain, but something Baron had managed by being the only player with two classes, support and mage. Back then, Baron lamented Jaehan's late naturalization, wishing he had accepted American citizenship sooner. He'd often joked he would cherish Jaehan as a true American. Despite his odd behavior, Baron occasionally revealed deep insights, such as his pride in possessing the SS gift, Force. Baron had explained that fusing divine and magic power wasn't something others could attempt, as no one else had access to both class types. Only he had the qualifications. Jaehan remembered asking if knowing such information was okay, considering he was an American. But Baron simply stated that it didn't matter. No one else could achieve what he could. Back in the present, Jaehan began attempting the process himself. Channeling divine power into his hand while drawing magic power from his heart, he pushed to fuse them. He tried to hold it all in his palm, but the energy burst out violently, knocking him back. He slammed into the wall, groaning as he rubbed his head. The attempt had failed. He realized brute strength wasn't enough. The energy couldn't be tamed by force alone. Thinking through it again, he considered whether raising his magic power would help, but it was already nearly depleted after one attempt. Then a new idea came to him, not to forcibly hold the power in his hand, but to contain it inside his body. He planned to fuse the divine power from his upper key center and magic power from his middle key center, while using his martial power in the lower key center to stabilize the mix, a perfect state with no leakage. With renewed focus, Jaehan began the process. Red energy surged around him and intense pain followed. He screamed as his body struggled to handle the overload. A system window appeared, warning him of the danger. The unification of the tri-key centers had begun. He had exceeded what a normal player could endure. The risk of death had been detected. Hearing his scream, Sia rushed from the other room, calling out in panic. Her voice echoed through the house, concerned for her uncle. Jaehan, in his quest to unlock greater power, had unconsciously attempted the unification of his three energy centers, divine power, magic power, and martial power, while trying to draw out the force through a fusion of divine and magic energy. This resulted in a spontaneous reaction that also involved his martial energy. However, the conditions required for the tri-key centers unification were far from simple. One needed complete mastery over all three power types, each distinct in nature. On top of that, it demanded all related stats to exceed 100. Attempting this process without meeting these strict conditions was essentially inviting disaster. Moments after a sharp scream echoed from Jaehan's room, Sia rushed in, holding a cloth soaked in cold water. She gently applied it to his forehead, confused and concerned. The entire situation made little sense to her. How could a simple headache cause someone to scream that loudly? Jaehan, regaining his composure, could only offer a vague excuse about the mysterious nature of the human body. Frustrated, Sia raised her voice, pleading with him to take her seriously. Then, realizing her tone, she apologized tearfully. She confessed how scared she had been, genuinely worried that something terrible had happened to him. Jaehan reflected silently, regretting his lack of consideration for Sia's feelings. He acknowledged to himself that he had been too short-sighted. Looking directly at her, he reassured her that he was perfectly fine and apologized for making her worry. Sia wiped away her tears and, with a playful punch to his chest, declared that she was fine too. Since everything turned out all right, she cheerfully announced that she would continue her search for the Lady Shadow Queen and took her leave, wishing him luck. Jaehan smiled, thanking her as she walked away. Alone again, Jaehan thought to himself that he could no longer afford to appear weak in front of her. He accepted the obvious truth. His attempt to unify the tri-key centers had failed. His experience and power levels simply weren't sufficient. A system notification confirmed his failure. Yet he wasn't entirely disappointed. Lifting a cloth fragment from a bowl using only his power, he reminded himself that he had still gained what he truly wanted, the unique stat known as Force. The system revealed that although the unification had failed, his divine and magic powers had successfully merged, forming the Force. He reviewed the process in his mind. The upper key center held divine power, the middle key center held magic power, and the lower key center contained martial power. Though he had failed to unite all three, the merger of divine and magic power was a step forward. Another system message informed him that the connections between the tri-key centers were weakly maintained. He noticed something odd. The starting stat for Force was already at 12. Furthermore, martial power and Force were now linked, sharing their stat values. This meant increasing one would automatically raise the other. Curious, Jaehan increased his martial power stat by 2, and as expected, the Force stat increased as well. Observing the result, he felt a mix of excitement and disbelief. This interaction between stats seemed almost too beneficial, bordering on being unfair. Still, he wondered what kind of incredible benefits would follow once he achieved full tri-key centers unification. Despite the temptation to try again, Jaehan knew that pushing further at his current level could be fatal. He reminded himself that he had already acquired a major advantage. To test his abilities, he attempted a mage skill. However, due to insufficient power, only a small fireball formed. Amused, he watched the flicker and smiled at how cute it looked. As dawn broke, sunlight streamed through the window and stirred him awake. The system notified him that his divine power had reached 10. He could no longer absorb divine power from holy items below D tier and would need items of C tier or higher from now on. Checking his inventory, Jae-han found 2 new weapons. One was a hand acupressure wand classified as D tier. It wasn't truly for acupressure, it's still considered as such by some. The other was simply a play ball rated E tier. Despite their mundane appearances, both had some use. Jae-han yawned, thinking that although he had been uncertain about these purchases, they actually worked. Still, he grumbled at how stingy the shop was, having used his own points for them. He considered selling the extras on a second-hand market. Stepping out of his room, Jae-han called out to Sia to check if she was awake. As he descended the stairs toward the living room, he wondered whether she might still be asleep. But when he arrived, he saw her sitting quietly on the sofa. Her appearance made it clear she hadn't slept all night. Slowly removing one earbud, she greeted him with low energy. Jae-han asked about her tired state, and Sia explained she had been searching intensely for something. He told her she didn't need to push herself so hard. Still, she insisted he look at something on her phone. With a faint smile, she showed him what she had found, an other race phantom. These were videos secretly recorded by people using the rare scope gift, which allowed them to monitor other races in detail. Jae-han thought it was unfortunate that such a powerful gift was used for spying. Sia played a replay of Jae-han's recent match, pointing out 2 L's on screen. In the video, someone commented on their flawless skin, praising their race. Sia muted the sound in disgust, mentioning that one of the elves was likely a dark elf, possibly the Shadow Queen. She noted that the title seemed to suit her perfectly and asked Jae-han's opinion. Jae-han agreed that it sounded plausible and thanked Sia for her efforts. Still, she wasn't fully convinced and said she would continue digging. Jae-han silently acknowledged that the true identity of the constellation might not be revealed so easily. Steve declared that starting tomorrow, she would begin searching through foreign videos next. The search for truth and power was far from over. Jae-han glanced at Sia with mild surprise, acknowledging how professional she sounded now. Her confidence didn't waver. She declared that she would not only edit the videos but also package everything in a neat, presentable format. He asked if she really knew how to handle video editing as well. Sia nodded, admitting that while her skills weren't advanced, she had dabbled in it. She used to create highlight videos of her father's matches back when it was just a hobby. This simple admission hit Jae-han harder than expected. A wave of emotion passed over him. Thoughts of Yoon Se-jin came crashing down. His friend, his brother-in-law, now reduced to a bitter memory. Jae-han couldn't stop himself from wondering, had that man truly disappeared, leaving behind his only daughter to fend for herself? He clenched his jaw. What kind of father does that? To Jae-han, it wasn't abandonment, it was betrayal. In his heart, he cursed him as a disappointing bastard. From there, the timeline rewound 2 days. On that day, Manager Park had visited Jae-han with an expression that suggested he was carrying the Weightmas secret. During their conversation, Park revealed his shocking claim. He believed he knew the true identity of the woman who had captivated the Sword King. Stia's ears perked up instantly as she asked who it was. Manager Park replied with a name neither of them expected, Enro Shizuru. She was said to possess an SS-grade gift, a title that echoed through every corner of the supernatural world, nation-tilting beauty. The name alone carried power and danger. Hearing it, Sia and Jae-han were both stunned, momentarily speechless. Jae-han's voice rose with fury as he questioned whether Yoon Se-jin had really been enchanted, bewitched by the power of a skill. Park confirmed the possibility. According to the Bureau of Administration, this wasn't just a far-fetched theory. It was their working conclusion. Though Park himself was hearing some of the details for the first time, he didn't hesitate to warn Jae-han. He urged him to be extremely cautious. That particular gift, he explained, likely didn't just control minds, it was suspected to alter or modify one's thoughts on a deeper level. The implications were terrifying. Park revealed that there had been several similar cases before, cases in which Korea's most promising talents had suddenly shifted allegiances and defected to Japan without warning. These rising stars, who once stood proudly for their homeland, had changed overnight. If the nation-tilting beauty gift had no operational limitations, then the threat wasn't just hypothetical, it was imminent. Park warned that someone like her could easily reappear and target Korea's strongest again. The narrative then returned to the present. Jae-han recalled how, ever since that meeting, he had been relentlessly searching for any clues about Enro Shizuru or the so-called nation-tilting beauty. But his efforts had yielded nothing. Not a trace, not even a whisper. It became clear that the Japanese government was deliberately and aggressively suppressing any information related to her existence. She was completely off the grid. With his current resources, Jae-han had no way to dig deeper. For now, he had no choice but to stay vigilant, just as Park Yoon-sik had advised. Even if the enemy hadn't made a move yet, there was no guarantee they weren't already preparing one behind the scenes. He had to be ready. And as if on cue, the atmosphere across Korea shifted. A new broadcast alert echoed across national channels, making headlines. The announcement was clear and urgent. The Neo Self-Defense Force had officially arrived in Korea. The storm was no longer on the horizon. It was already here. Sia and Jae-han were seen getting ready, preparing to leave for an important event. As she adjusted her outfit, Sia turned to Jae-han and asked if he was ready, urging him to hurry before they ended up late. Jahan, brushing back his sleeves, replied with calm confidence, assuring her he was done. His eyes held a quiet dominance, slightly narrowed as a faint smirk tugged at his lips, an expression that revealed he was either ready to face a challenge or had already predicted victory. Inside the elevator, tension settled around Sia. Jahan noticed her unease and asked if she was feeling nervous. He calmly reassured her, telling her there was no need to be. Sia admitted that this was her first time standing in the spotlight since the incident involving her father, and naturally, she felt nervous. Jahan reminded her to remain confident, just like during the previous broadcast. He told her there was no reason to be conscious of what others thought, especially when they had done nothing wrong. Encouraged by his words, Sia nodded. As the elevator doors opened to the lobby, Jahan turned to her and remarked that most people had already decided what they wanted to hear. Just then, Manager Park approached for the formal greeting, stating they had been waiting for him. He informed Jahan that everything he had requested was prepared, and they were ready to begin. Jahan thanked him and said he'd be in Park's care until the end of the event. Manager Park, still a bit overwhelmed, brought up the unusual request Jahan had made earlier, an auction of the Sword King's personal collection. Former Sword King Yoon Sejin's cherished items and possessions were about to be auctioned off. The event was hosted by the Korean BattleNet Administration's Yoon Seon. Park began to understand Jahan's intentions, realizing that it was a move to involve Japan. Jahan confirmed it. He had specifically selected the auction items with purpose, the BattleNet connector once used by Yoon Sejin, along with the embedded combat data inside. Japan would be drawn to it, especially for the embedded data. In fact, Jahan suspected that someone might even attend in person to retrieve it. The scene briefly shifted to a luxury car speeding toward the venue. Inside, an unidentified figure made their way to the auction. Back at the venue, Jahan continued speaking to Manager Park. Whether Yoon Sejin showed up or not, the people attending would have to confront the reality of this opportunity. Eventually, they would understand there was no other choice but to accept it. Park looked at Jahan with quiet awe. Son Jahan, this man felt like someone who'd see a future. Jahan stated clearly that this was their last chance to shift public sentiment. He asked Manager Park to ensure reporters kept a close watch on the Neo Self-Defense Force table. Suddenly, chaos erupted near the entrance. A woman and two men loudly called out to Sia, trying to get her attention. Security guards stopped them, but the group insisted they were family and only wanted a moment to talk. Sia turned and recognized her aunt and uncles. Her aunt, furious, shouted at her, asking if she'd lost her mind. Even if money was needed, holding such an auction was unthinkable. She accused Jahan of tricking innocent Sia and attempting to sell off treasured possessions. Jahan stepped forward, calling out the hypocrisy. He reminded them that they had scammed others and were kicked out while using his father's name. There were limits to how much he could tolerate. Did they really think he was a pushover? He wasn't fooled by their intentions. They had their hands on money while his father was away. Sia's aunt was stunned, warning Jahan to watch his mouth. Sia then firmly declared that everything her father left behind belonged to her. They had no right to argue. She instructed security to kick them out, stating they were not related to her. Without looking back, she walked away with Jahan. Her aunt shouted after them, demanding they stop, but security reminded her that only authorized individuals could enter. Jahan glanced at Sia with admiration, teasing her about being unusually cool today. Sia smiled, replying that she always handled things properly when it mattered. Manager Park guided both of them toward the stage. As they stepped into the spotlight, camera flashes erupted across the hall. The sudden brightness bothered Sia, but she remained composed. Reporters immediately fired questions. One asked Jahan about his intentions behind today's auction, pointing out the unusual move of allowing foreign organizations to participate. Another turned to Sia, asking if there had been external pressure related to donating the Sword Palace or hosting the auction. Others questioned if the Sword King had given up on returning and accused the siblings of using his belongings for money. Another reporter called out to Jahan, demanding comments on BattleNet's recent results. Without warning, Jahan unleashed a divine power that shattered all the camera's lenses in an instant. Shock spread across the room. No one had seen how it happened or who caused it. Jahan's voice cut through the confusion, calm and resolute. This was an auction, not a press conference, and everyone needed to quiet down. The auction was beginning. 3 items had been prepared. The first was Yoon Sejin's BattleNet connector, modified with a 99% pain reduction feature. Included with it was the vital data stored inside. This also featured Yoon Sejin's own combat analysis and data from high-ranking Korean and East Asian players. Hearing this, murmurs spread among the attendees. The Sword King's data was undeniably valuable. The analysis of other players added merit, especially with the upcoming Korea-Japan match on the horizon. Jahan watched the crowd with a knowing smirk. They wouldn't dare pass up a single one of these items. After all, high-end player data wasn't something that could be acquired so easily. As the bidding hall buzzed with anticipation and media murmurs slowly died down, a sudden voice pierced the air. A man calmly raised his hand, stepping forward with quiet authority. With a polished tone and deliberate poise, he introduced himself as Takeda Kazuo, the recruiting team leader from the Neo Self-Defense Force of Japan. His declaration wasn't just bold, it was calculated. Takeda confidently stated that since the auction had officially begun, he wished to place his starting bid of 5 billion yen. His words echoed through the hall, drawing every gaze toward him. The amount wasn't just staggering, it was a clear power move. He emphasized that his offer covered all the items listed in the auction, making it clear that he intended to sweep everything in one go. But he wasn't finished yet. With a slight pause, Takeda added another layer to his statement. He politely requested a private meeting with both Sung Jae-han and Yoon Se. The moment the words left his mouth, a collective murmur rippled through the audience. Jae-han's gaze hardened, and without breaking eye contact, he moved closer, the weight of his presence pressing into the space. His eyes sharpened, delivering a silent warning, and his tone remained steady yet piercing. He made it clear that if Takeda had business with him, he should speak openly, right here in front of everyone. Jae-han dismissed the idea of a private meeting outright, stating firmly that this was neither the place nor the time for such a request. With a subtle sting in his words, he pointed out that Japan, of all nations, should be well aware of this situation's sensitivity. Takeda, momentarily startled, gave a nervous chuckle, pretending to back down. He insisted he was simply another guest at the auction, asking Jae-han not to be so severe. But that fragile humility lasted only a moment. His expression quickly twisted into a crooked smirk, revealing the arrogance behind the politeness. With a hint of mockery in his voice, he added that if Jae-han insisted on maintaining such an aggressive attitude, then perhaps it would be time for his personal guard to step in. As if on cue, a silent figure moved forward, his bodyguard known only as Shadow. She emerged from the sidelines with measured steps, positioning herself in front of Jae-han. Her expression was unreadable, but the lethal focus in her eyes said everything. She slowly unsheathed her sword, holding it low but ready, and met Jae-han's glare with a chilling intensity. The room tensed. Everyone could feel the invisible pressure beginning to rise. Takeda continued to speak, though his tone now carried a smug undertone. He explained that although his guard might not rival the Sword King in sheer might, she was still an exceptional player in her own right, powerful, refined, and dangerous. He claimed he wasn't threatening anyone. He insisted he was merely urging caution, throwing in a half-hearted laugh to mask a clear provocation. Jae-han stared at the woman before him, his expression unmoved, but his mind already analyzing her presence, her posture, her composure, even the intensity in her eyes. It all reminded him of someone. With a slow-burning glare, he thought to himself how she was trying too hard to mirror the aura of Yoon Se-jin. Beneath the surface, Jae-han's irritation simmered. He recognized exactly what this was, a staged demonstration, a show of force hidden behind diplomacy and money. And Jae-han knew one thing. He wasn't about to play along. It only took an instant. The shadow emerged before Sung Jae-han, thrusting her blade forward with lethal intent. But in that same moment, she was forcefully suppressed by him. Without hesitation, Jae-han struck the shadow in the face. Her teeth clenched in frustration. He coldly asked if she wanted more. Just as she reached for her sword, Jae-han placed a firm hand on her shoulder and calmly warned her it would be better to stop now. The entire scene was being broadcast to the world through his battle tube stream. Jae-han reminded her of this, making it clear, swinging a weapon under the eyes of millions would be foolish. Viewers watching the live broadcast began commenting. People cursed Scam Se-jin, calling him out for crossing the line. They mocked their desperation. Since they couldn't win against Jae-han, they resorted to violence instead. Trying to smooth things over, Takeda bowed and apologized, claiming they'd never think of doing such a thing. He gestured dramatically and said his bodyguard had gone too far. He offered an apology on her behalf. But then, Takeda changed tone. That sly smirk returned to his face as he mentioned there was something that needed to be cleared up. He reminded everyone that his offer of 5 billion yen included a request for a private meeting, and he insisted that the answer must come from Ms. Yoon Se herself. Se looked surprised and asked if he meant her. More comments rolled in. Viewers grew suspicious of Takeda's intentions, calling him a shady pig. As he approached Se, Takeda continued, pointing out that the Sword King's assets were inherited by his daughter. That meant Se was the true owner of the auction. His proposal for a private meeting, he claimed, was for her benefit. He pressed further, asking if she wasn't curious about her father's well-being. Se stiffened in shock at the mention. Takeda told her she could ask anything she wanted. He, too, had a lot to say to her. And then, with a false gentleness, he asked what she would choose to do. Se weighed the situation. There was nothing to consider. Unless someone was a complete fool, no one would refuse an offer involving that much money. But even then, Se stood firm and rejected his offer. The viewers burst into laughter in the comment section, amused by her blunt rejection. Takeda was visibly shaken. His expression twisted awkwardly as he stammered in panic, mixing Japanese and Korean in desperation. He asked if she was seriously giving up 5 billion yen just because of a private meeting. He pointed out the amount was equal to 500 billion won. Se didn't budge. She explained that, as her uncle had said before, she needed to be cautious due to the current situation. If communication with her father required a trade, she wasn't interested. And above all, she was still a minor. She would follow the guidance of her legal guardian, her uncle. The viewers laughed even harder, especially at Takeda's flustered reaction and awkward body language. Some compared his hand gestures to a pretty girl's pose, expressing their irritation. Among the crowd, whispers began to spread. Some expressed relief, thankful that Se wouldn't end up under Japan's control. But others reminded them it was too early to celebrate. Even though she rejected the private meeting, the real decision would depend on how much the Neo Self-Defense Force would offer next. Takeda accepted the rejection with a heavy tone. He said it couldn't be helped. Then he officially declared that the Neo Self-Defense Force would maintain their offer of 5 billion yen. He clarified that the private meeting had only been a personal bonus he chose to include. Listening from a distance, Jae-han's expression hardened. He realized Takeda had been trying to deceive them. Then Takeda pulled out an envelope and revealed it to C. He claimed the 5 billion yen offer was an instruction from the Sword King himself. He handed over the letter, saying it was from none other than Ito Ryuhei, addressed directly to Yun-san. He laughed confidently and asked if this meant they had won the bid. Sia looked down at the envelope, frozen in disbelief. Takeda leaned back with a smug grin, clearly relishing the outcome of the auction. He remarked on how unexpected it was that they had acquired the Sword King's possessions so effortlessly. The Koreans hadn't even managed to put up a decent fight. The BattleNet officials, once presumed to hold significant authority, appeared helpless. Takeda's mocking tone dripped with arrogance as he ridiculed them, pointing out how they couldn't even match a bid of 5 billion yen. His words struck a nerve. Though no one voiced it aloud, the room was filled with silent resentment. Many present cursed him inwardly, angered by his smug attitude but unable to retaliate. Still basking in his moment of triumph, Takeda turned to Jai-Han with a casual smile, commenting that the auction had ended far too quickly. Jai-Han observed him quietly. In his thoughts, he recalled who this man truly was: Takeda, the recruitment team leader of Japan's Neo Self-Defense Force. Before Jai-Han's regression, this man had earned a fearsome reputation. He had been so effective at recruiting high-value overseas players that the US government had declared him a threat and barred him from entering the country. Because of his relentless tactics and cunning nature, he had earned the infamous title of the Japanese Calamity. Takeda, now fully confident in his victory, suggested that they move on to writing the contract immediately. Jai-Han agreed with a nod, maintaining a composed expression. But deep inside, he remained alert. He suspected that Takeda might have close ties with a player who possessed the nation-tilting beauty trait. That alone made him dangerous. Jai-Han knew better than to underestimate someone like that. However, something about the entire situation didn't sit right with him. The atmosphere in the auction hall had shifted into something heavy and unnatural. Japan had won the auction with such ease. It almost felt staged, like they had planned everything in advance. As murmurs spread across the room, the audience's doubts turned vocal. Some questioned how it made any sense to start a bid at 500 billion won. Others voiced their frustration, wondering why they had even been summoned if the results had already been predetermined. The crowd's restlessness began to rise. The tension in the air thickened. Outside the hall, online viewers shared similar thoughts. People commented on how Japan had won the auction just like that. Many questioned whether the entire event had been a farce from the start. A few pointed out that this kind of outcome only made sense if there had been a backroom deal in place from the very beginning. In the midst of this confusion and rising frustration, C stepped forward. Her hands trembled as she unfolded a letter. It was a handwritten note from her father, the Sword King. She began reading it aloud in a steady but soft voice. The letter revealed that her father had heard of her decision to donate the Sword Palace. He didn't understand why she had done such a thing and confessed that he found it disappointing. He referred to the letter as his final inheritance to her, urging her to use it wisely. Then came the most painful part. He stated that their relationship as father and daughter was now officially over, and warned her not to expect anything from him ever again. As Sia continued reading, tears welled up in her eyes. Her voice cracked. Drops of sadness fell from her cheeks and splashed onto the paper, staining the ink. Despite the heartbreak, she let out a bitter laugh, trying to smile through the pain. She acknowledged that the handwriting was unmistakably her father's. Jai-Han watched in silence, his heart tightening with sympathy. He realized then that the nation-tilting trait wasn't just symbolic, it truly had the power to manipulate the heart and mind. Though Jai-Han had never liked the Sword King, neither his personality nor his actions, he had to admit that, at least for his daughter, the man had been a reliable and cool-headed father. It was painful to witness even that final fragment of warmth being torn apart. The man had gone as far as emotionally wounding Sia to sever their bond completely. Sia's expression hardened as she turned toward Takeda. She asked him to deliver a message to Mr. Ito, that she had received her father's final inheritance and was glad to end their relationship completely. Then she looked at the letter with distaste. With a dry laugh, she remarked that tearing it apart might be inconvenient for those who had to clean it up afterward. Regardless, she raised the paper and let the pieces scatter into the air like confetti of sorrow. Jai-Han stepped in, gently assuring her that he would take care of the fragments. Channeling his divine powers, he summoned a controlled flame in his palm. The floating pieces of the letter ignited midair and burned to ash, disappearing before they touched the ground. The audience gasped in shock. Whispers echoed through the hall. People began to question what they had just witnessed. Was Sung Jai-Han really a mage and not a supporter? They had seen him fight with raw power, resembling a warrior in close combat. And now he demonstrated magic, divine magic at that. To combine both combat and magic so effortlessly was almost unheard of. Takeda narrowed his eyes, his thoughts swirling with desire. He was now obsessed. Sung Jai-Han had become more than just an intriguing figure. He was a prize Takeda had to obtain at all costs. He exhaled sharply, the hunger in his gaze clear. Jai-Han was someone Japan had to secure under their flag. That moment triggered a chaotic scramble. Representatives from multiple guilds surged forward toward Jai-Han, each desperate to recruit him. They thrust business cards into his hands, each speaking over the other. They begged him to consider joining their guild and promised to meet any terms he might demand. One insisted that being the first to approach should count for something. Another pleaded for just a moment of his time. Caught off guard by the crowd's intensity, Jai-Han raised his hands and tried to calm them down. He explained that he was still confused by this situation and wasn't in the right mindset to talk about guild contracts just yet. The pressure was too much, and he needed time to think. Just then, Sia called out to him faintly, addressing him as her uncle. Jahan turned to her and asked if she could go ahead first, promising to join her once he managed the growing commotion. But Sia didn't respond immediately. She brought a hand to her head, her face pale. She stammered that it wasn't about leaving. Her head was hurting, terribly so. And then her legs gave out. Her body crumpled to the floor in a faint. Jahan's heart dropped as he saw her collapse. Panic struck his face, and he rushed to her side, shouting her name with urgent desperation. As Sia collapsed, Jahan rushed forward and caught her just in time. Cradling her gently, he urged her to open her eyes. He asked how she was feeling, promising they'd head to the hospital right away. But then Sia whispered softly, revealing the truth. It was all an act. She had noticed Jahan struggling amidst the chaotic crowd, so she decided to intervene in her own way. Her performance had been deliberate, meant to ease the pressure building around him. Meanwhile, security guards moved swiftly, holding back the restless crowd and maintaining order as whispers and chatter echoed through the auction hall. Back in Jahan's arms, Sia looked up at him and asked with a faint smile if her acting had been convincing. Jahan couldn't help but smile. In his mind, he chuckled and thought to himself that she was just like Nuna, bold, clever, and always ready to jump in with flair. Outside the hall, viewers flooded the stream with emotional reactions. Some blamed it all on the traitorous Sword King, while others expressed concern and affection, pleading for Sia not to fall ill. Taking control of the situation, Jahan addressed the crowd. He apologized, stating firmly that he would have to end the event immediately. His niece was unwell and needed rest. His tone left no room for argument. To maintain the ruse, Jahan played along. He turned to Sia and asked if she could walk. Staying in character, Sia responded that she just wanted to go back and rest. Amidst the crowd, Takeda approached once more, flashing his business card with a thin smile. He apologized if his involvement had caused any trouble and extended a formal invitation. He hoped Jahan would call him sometime soon so they could greet each other properly. Jahan looked at the card for a moment, then summoned a flicker of flame in his palm. Without hesitation, he burned the card to ash, responding wordlessly. That was his answer. Viewers online reacted instantly. Comments exploded, mocking how a Korean bronze player had just dismissed the leader of the global rank 4 guild's management team. Some laughed, noting how the baldy looked absolutely furious. But Takeda's smirk returned. Inwardly, he admired Jahan even more. It was just as he had expected. Sung Jahan was the real deal. The power he had shown even in something as trivial as burning a business card had impact. That mysterious strength held undeniable value. Even if Jahan was still officially a bronze player, he was already a rising star with a future worth investing in. Takeda vowed to claim him for Japan, no matter what it took. Once the chaos faded and they exited the hall, Jahan and Sia shared a high five. Jahan praised her for the performance, admitting that even he had almost believed it. Sia beamed with pride, puffing her chest slightly. She boasted that there was nothing she couldn't do. Jahan raised an eyebrow and teased her with one simple word, cooking. Just then, a system notification popped up before Jahan. A soft chime signaled an unchecked message. Curious, he opened it. The message revealed a surprising donation. Someone had transferred 10,000 GP with a note. It was nice to meet Jihan today. Let's meet again one-on-one next time. His eternal fan, Taekichin. Jahan read the message aloud, a bit stunned. Even after the stream had ended, someone had still gone out of their way to donate that much. The name didn't escape him, Taekichin. Sia peeked over his shoulder and grimaced. The handwriting was awful. She cringed at the overly dramatic tone. Her expression soared further. It turned out her very first donator was that guy. With a sigh, she muttered that she'd have to block him immediately. Just as Jahan and Sia began walking away from the crowd, a calm yet confident voice interrupted them. Owen approached, addressing them both with a formal greeting. It was Haeun, and by her side stood Gaeon. With a pleasant smile, Haeun introduced herself, explaining that she had come specifically to meet Jahan, having looked forward to it for quite some time. She apologized if her appearance had been too sudden. Jahan responded sharply, noting that the area was supposed to be restricted to unrelated personnel, and questioned how she managed to get in. But as she spoke, Jahan found her voice oddly familiar. Haeun explained that she shared a deep relationship with the Republic of Korea's BattleNet Administration Bureau. Using her connections, she had managed to gain access. Her tone was light as she casually mentioned being quite popular at work, even joking about her status as a nepotism hire. Jahan narrowed his eyes slightly. That bold tone, the brazen confidence. It felt like he had met her before. Just then, Haeun shifted the topic and referred to Jahan as match predictor Mr. Sung. As she adjusted her posture, something clicked in Jahan's mind. A certain memory surfaced and he stood frozen in place, staring at her in shock. Sia, observing Jahan's stunned expression, became suspicious. She wondered what had come over him to make such a dumbfounded face. The thought struck her. Could he be captivated by this woman? Then, without warning, Jahan recited a quote about life being full of possibilities, words once said by a man known both as a great writer and gambling addict. He turned to Haeun and asked if she liked that quote. The mention made Gaeong instantly alert. She stepped in front of Haeun, adopting a protective stance. Her voice rose as she questioned how Jahan knew Milady's motto. She emphasized that very few people were aware of Milady being a genuine gambler. The term gambler left her visibly concerned. She demanded to know how an outsider could know such a thing. Haeyeon looked at Gaeong in embarrassment. In her mind, she scolded her for blurting out things like that. Genuine gambler? How could that even make sense? Meanwhile, Jae-han thought silently to himself. There was no doubt anymore. This woman was Zero, the manager of American First. Other than himself, she was the only Korean in that guild. Back in the day, she was known for being a hopeless case, drowning herself in alcohol and gambling. But she possessed one special gift, her powerful training ability. Initially meant only to boost experience gain, the ability evolved once growth areas expanded post-tutorial. It began to affect stats, gift tiers, and much more. Among all the training specialists, she stood out the most. Zero had risen to become the Reserve Guild's master. Just then, Jae-han's system window displayed a skill, one that increased all growth efficiency for a selected player, including experience, stats, and gifts. Still fixated on Jae-han's earlier comment, Gaeong turned back to Haeyeon and asked if she had also been visiting gambling sites. Haeyeon, visibly flustered now, told her to be quiet. Jae-han reflected on everything. First the Plum Blossom Sword and now Zero. The Reason Guild truly had an impressive foundation, all things considered. To ease the tension, Jae-han explained that he had seen Haeyeon during his previous live streams. A particular message from a fan had stayed with him, so he asked her about it just in case. He apologized if it had come off as surprising. Still stunned, Gaeong asked Haeyeon if she chatted during streams too. Haeyeon, frustrated, told her to shut up. Turning back to Jae-han, Haeyeon cleared her throat. She admitted that being labeled a gambler all of a sudden wasn't the most pleasant experience. Jae-han smiled to himself. Inwardly, he thought the label wasn't wrong. It was the truth. Sia noticed his expression and lit up. He smiled. She began to wonder, did he actually like this woman? As the mood settled, Haeyeon pulled out her phone. She said starting things in a relaxed atmosphere wasn't so bad. For some reason, it felt like the two of them would be seeing each other often from now on. Watching this unfold, Sia grew more excited. Seeing Haeyeon with her phone sparked a wild thought. Was this it? Could she be getting on soon? Haeyeon moved closer and told Jae-han that Reason Guild was interested in him. She hoped they could meet privately one day. Sia was overwhelmed, nearly bursting with excitement. The thought echoed in her head, was she really about to have an aunt? Meanwhile, Haeyeon glanced at Gaeong and silently celebrated her own brilliance. She felt she had been irresistibly charming, a masterclass in controlling men, a demonstration straight from an expert trainer. Jae-han, flustered, stumbled with his response. He said he had forgotten his number. Sia raised an eyebrow. What kind of excuse was that? Was he trying to play hard to get? Maybe it was part of his plan. If so, she had to support her uncle. Immediately, Sia resumed her role and pretended to feel dizzy. She leaned against Jae-han, saying she needed rest. Jae-han wondered if she genuinely wanted to go inside and rest. If that was the case, he decided to go along with it. He turned to Haeyeon and apologized. His niece wasn't feeling well, so he would be heading back. He asked if she could leave her business card, promising to contact her first. Haeyeon stood there, momentarily stunned, as Jae-han and Sia walked away. After they were gone, Haeyeon turned to Gaeong and sighed, telling her to just laugh it off. Gaeong, barely able to contain herself, apologized through her laughter. But Haeyeon, now irritated, snapped that she was being annoying. Ia glanced at Jihan with a teasing smirk, her tone playful yet sharp as she commented on something she found completely unexpected. She never imagined that he'd wear clothes that made him look like someone's dad. Jihan, caught a little off guard but unfazed, responded with quiet honesty. He explained that most of his clothes didn't fit him anymore, and so this was all he had. There was nothing particularly wrong with that, was there? Sia nodded, only half convinced. She admitted that as long as he looked good, it was fine. But then her voice changed slightly, becoming more critical. His entire way of thinking, she said, was lame and outdated. The kind of mindset he was showing belonged to a different time. She shook her head again as if rejecting an ancient relic and scoffed at how old-fashioned his behavior had become. Pretending not to know his own phone number, using tactics like playing hard to get. Those were from another era. That wasn't just uncool, it was straight up pitiful. She pointed out that he was lucky she had a sharp instinct for seeing through lies like that. Jihan, clearly confused, tried to follow her train of thought but admitted he didn't understand any of it. Sia gave him a long blank stare before asking dead serious if he had dementia. Jihan looked back at her, calmly denying it. He didn't have dementia. He just didn't get what she was trying to say. There was a moment of silence between them before Jihan turned his attention back to the virtual world. The system window blinked open in front of him, displaying a new mission. Welcome to Gangnam District's Bronze League area. The objective was simple: defend the crystal and survive a wave of incoming zombie attacks. Jihan exhaled deeply, already feeling drained. Trying to calm down Sia had completely worn him out. The thought crossed his mind again. Did she seriously believe he was into Lee Haeyeon? That kind of gamble was insane. No rational person would assume something so reckless. But then his thoughts veered towards something far more significant. A shocking reunion with Zero. He hadn't expected to meet her again like that. His mind drifted to a distant memory. A day when he had been talking to Haeyeon, though at the time she had shown up in a completely different appearance. She had been furious, slamming her hands down and shouting in frustration over losing yet another match. She couldn't understand how someone like that, someone she referred to as a Manga, could have possibly won. It didn't make sense to her, and the rage in her voice made it clear. Jaehan's voice returned in that memory, explaining that the two of them had grown closer because they both shared a sense of loss. They had both lost their homelands. There was a common thread that quietly connected them. In their free time, they drank and speculated on who might win future matches. But for Zero, it wasn't just about guessing, it bordered on obsession. He reminded her that he had told her Diego would be the one to win. That prediction was based not on blind belief but on cold numbers. Diego was an SS-grade player. Haeyun had dismissed it at the time, arguing that someone blessed only with the outdated gift of soccer god couldn't possibly be that powerful. But Jihan insisted stats didn't lie. That was the truth. She begrudgingly accepted the point but still swore to win next time as long as gambling was off the table. Siu's voice cut into that memory, disappointed once again. She told him he was letting her down. In a world so full of limitless possibilities, she couldn't just ignore something like this. Jihan, now visibly irritated, told her to stop making excuses, especially when she was always the one losing. He was tired of hearing the same words again and again. Then with a pointed glance, he asked her if she was ever going to wipe that strange mark off her face. Haeyun touched her face lightly, her fingers brushing against the mark. She said she never would. That mark was symbolic, a permanent price she had paid for making a deal with the devil. Jihan, reflecting quietly, told the audience that aside from their naturalized status, he and Haeyun shared many other things in common. Haeyun then looked at Jihan with eyes full of mixed emotions and asked why he was stronger now. If he had been that strong back in Korea, then perhaps her friend wouldn't have had to die. Her voice trembled with sorrow and unresolved anger. But then she stopped herself. She said she didn't even have the right to say such things. After all, she was a terrible person too, consumed by guilt and self-hatred. The two of them clinked glasses, sharing a quiet moment of understanding. Jihan thought deeply about that moment. The guilt, the shame, the helplessness. They were both victims of their own regrets, haunted by the memories of those they failed to protect. Returning to the present, Jihan muttered that something like that had indeed happened before. His thoughts were interrupted by a flood of live-stream comments. Viewers were getting restless. One demanded to know how long he planned to stand there dramatically. Another mocked his suit, asking when the comfortable sweats had gone. Someone joked that he must have come straight from an auction house. Another fan noted that Jihan looked like he was trying to thirst trap the audience again. One observant viewer zoomed in on his hand and noticed a massive weapon. It was none other than the Orc Priest's greatsword, a sacred blade once used during the Hmong altar sacrifices. It was forged to slice through offerings in the name of their god. Jihan stared at the weapon in his hand, thinking to himself that the low price of a C-grade sacred sword should have been a red flag. Of course it had a problem. It was unbearably heavy. Most people wouldn't be able to lift it, let alone swing it. Still, as he tried it out, his movements were fluid and strong. He could handle the weight perhaps even better than expected. He mused to himself that it wasn't the worst thing in the world after all. Viewers flooded the chat again. Some speculated he must be a gold warrior based on his sheer strength. Others demanded he open his stat window. Some were genuinely curious, others just wanted entertainment. People were confused. He fought like a warrior, used magic, but his class still showed as supporter. It didn't add up, and everyone wanted answers. Jihan, unfazed, stabbed his sword into the ground and glanced at the growing audience. With over 12,000 subscribers now, the attention was becoming overwhelming. Still, the viewers kept pushing. Show the stats, show the stats. They joked that their lives couldn't move on until they saw his stats. A debate sparked between whether he was a warrior, a supporter, or something else entirely. Jihan considered revealing them, but decided against it. It was too risky to show his hand now. He figured that if he just ignored them long enough, their curiosity might fade. At that moment, a system window popped up. Subscriber recruitment complete. He pondered whether to go for a common tactic. Then he faced the viewers and introduced himself again. He acknowledged that a lot of people were interested in seeing his stats. The viewers weren't buying it. They called him out, saying he was stalling again. Finally, he made an announcement. He would reveal his stats, but only if his subscriber count reached 20,000. The chat exploded. Some laughed, calling the goal impossible. Others mocked him brutally, bringing up painful past events and voicing their anger. One called it a pledge from a bronze league nobody. Another shouted that he might as well admit he'd never show them. As expected, Jihan thought the long-term pledge didn't go over well. The crowd wasn't happy, and their backlash echoed loudly across the chat. Jihan addressed the swelling crowd of viewers with an air of confidence, his voice steady and calculated. He told them he had one more surprise in store. If, at any point from now on, he ever lost his position as the #1 player, he would reveal his stats without hesitation, right then and there. The audience erupted with disbelief. Comments streamed in furiously, some filled with awe, others with skepticism. The idea that he would challenge himself to maintain an unbroken winning streak sounded absolutely wild to them. It was risky, bold, borderline insane, but it was also thrilling. Viewers couldn't help but lean in, intrigued by the high stakes. Jihan, watching the chat scroll by, spoke to himself. In his mind, this was more than enough to string the crowd along. They were simple in their desires, give them suspense, give them drama, and they would follow. He had them right where he wanted. But more comments started pouring in. Many were doubtful of his chances in a team match. They knew how unpredictable those games could get. Some viewers voiced their worries. What if he got a troll in his party? Someone who didn't take the game seriously or who would deliberately mess things up. A few openly hoped it would happen just to see how Jihan would react under pressure. Before those thoughts could settle, the ground suddenly split with energy. A blinding, golden light burst down from the sky, illuminating the area with divine brilliance. 3 figures landed in quick succession, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Jahan's eyes widened in disbelief. All at once, BJ Golden Light, Juhyuk, and Macid entered the arena together. It felt almost unreal. He couldn't hide his surprise. Could all 3 of them really end up in the same match? What were the odds of that? Something about it felt too coincidental to be random. BJ Golden Light, ever the overacting entertainer, immediately launched into his familiar theatrics. He turned to Jihan with exaggerated flair, declaring their reunion a sign from destiny, something written in the stars. To him, this was fate playing its hand. But the mood wasn't shared by everyone. The mage, Juhyuk, stood stiff, his expression dark with resentment. His eyes narrowed at the sight of Jihan. He didn't say anything, but his body language screamed annoyance and anger. Clearly, he hadn't forgotten their last encounter. Jihan glanced his way and tried to recall his name. It barely came to him. The memory was vague and insignificant to him, unlike Juhyuk, who was clearly still holding a grudge. He then turned to Macid, observing the man for the first time. This was their first meeting. But once revered as Argentina's strongest player, Macid now looked like a shell of his former self. His posture had weakened, his build had lost sharpness, and an untamed beard covered much of his face. He looked unkempt, tired, like someone who had long given up. But something else caught Jahan's attention. Something didn't make sense. His team composition had him as the supporter, Sparkle Boy as the warrior, and Juhyuk as the mage, yet Macid was appearing as an archer. That couldn't be right. Jahan distinctly remembered him being a mage in the past. The class change was confusing, almost unsettling. Something strange was definitely going on here. Meanwhile, Juhyuk's inner thoughts churned with rage. He couldn't believe he was teamed up with Jihan again. The last time they crossed paths had ended badly for him. He had lost his skill because of that man. His teeth clenched at the memory, his fists trembling with frustration. Just looking at Jahan's face filled him with loathing. It was as if the very sight of him was a reminder of everything he hated. Then, as if on cue, a system window suddenly opened in front of Juhyuk. A new mission had been assigned to him: destroy the crystal and prevent Sung Jae-han from securing first place. The reward was a staggering 50,000 GP. The moment he read it, Juhyuk's thoughts paused in disbelief. His expression shifted from annoyance to shock. The mission was clear, but the implications ran deep. This wasn't just another random match. Something bigger was at play. The game itself wanted Jihan stopped, and Juhyuk had just been given the perfect incentive to make it happen. The system window blinked with a sharp notification, signaling the start of the round. Instantly, Macid sprang into action. Without hesitation, he kicked his football with force, striking 2 nearby zombies and knocking them off the platform to the lower level. It was a bold and unconventional move, but it drew immediate ridicule from the viewers. The chat exploded with laughter and sarcastic comments. They scoffed at his strategy, mocking him openly. What did he think he was doing? Did he seriously believe he could defeat zombies using a football? To them, it was absurd, almost comical. But Macid ignored the noise. He turned his focus to Jahan, his tone firm and determined. He stated with confidence that the role of a support was different, something most players fail to understand. As an archer, he needed more strength to fulfill his function effectively. He emphasized that in a team-based game like this, every member had to stick to their role for the strategy to work. He then revealed something personal, a skill, a buff he had been unable to use until now. His stats had always fallen short, but not anymore. With his divine power finally reaching a new level, it was time to test it out. Without delay, Jahan activated the buff. A powerful wave surged outward from him, enveloping his teammates and significantly boosting their strength. BJ's eyes lit up the moment the effect kicked in. He felt the difference instantly. Strength flowed through his limbs like never before. He looked at Jahan, smiling with genuine appreciation, and thanked him sincerely for the buffs. Meanwhile, Mage Juhyuk stood frozen, disbelief etched across his face. His mind raced. How could that crazy bastard Jahan possibly be giving them a buff? It didn't make sense. It defied everything he expected from someone like Jahan. The man who always did things his own way, suddenly supporting others. Jahan didn't let up. He turned toward Juhyuk with a smug expression and addressed him with condescension. He called him out mockingly, referring to him as the old-faced mage. Then he challenged him. Was he finally going to play the game properly this time? BJ, now even more curious, looked between them and asked Juhyuk a flurry of questions. Did they know each other before this? Had something happened between them? Were they former friends, or was there some sort of rivalry going on? Juhyuk's thoughts churned with unease. Jahan's attitude irritated him deeply, but worse, it unsettled him. If he played along too willingly, he feared Jahan might toss him aside yet again, just like he had done before. He couldn't afford to be made a fool of twice. Breaking the tension, Jahan calmly announced that he was leaving the top area to Juhyuk. Then, without hesitation, he leaped from the platform and dove into the lower battlefield, where the zombie horde was thickest. Macid saw this and was stunned. What the hell was Jahan doing? Was he insane? Who would willingly jump straight into that chaos? Juhyuk, now fuming, shouted at Macid. He called him a blind, football-kicking bastard, venting his frustration. Inside, his anger boiled. He had hated all of this from the start. The setup, the situation, Jahan's attitude, it all felt wrong. Did Jahan really think of him as a sidekick, some disposable tool? No, not a chance. Let Jahan run around and act like a hero for now. He'd get what was coming eventually. Just then, another system window appeared before Gyuyuk's eyes. This one had a different kind of message, cold and tempting. It instructed him to stop Sung Jahan from taking first place by breaking the crystal. The reward for completing this task was a massive 61,800 units. Gyuyuk's lips curled into a dark grin. So that was how it was going to be. Let's see how long Jahan could continue doing everything his way. Down in the thick of the battlefield, Jahan was already moving. Fire mana surged through him, blending seamlessly with his divine power. Flames and energy danced across his body. Wielding his sword with calculated precision, he charged forward, striking down zombies one after another. Each slash was powerful, clean, and filled with lethal intent. Macid, watching from above, couldn't believe his eyes. His jaw dropped slightly as he muttered under his breath, genuinely impressed. Jahan wasn't just fighting, he was dominating. That man, he was one crazy Korean bronze support. But he was something else entirely too. BJ, overcome with excitement, turned to the viewers with enthusiasm. His voice rose as he pointed at the scene below. He shouted that what they were witnessing was incredible. Everything was happening live, in real time, and it was nothing short of astonishing. The viewers erupted in awe. Comments flooded in rapid fire. People were asking who this man even was. Was he insane? Had he seriously already killed 100 zombies? How was that possible? At that moment, a massive blood-soaked zombie emerged before Jahan. Towering and grotesque, it groaned and lurched toward him. Jahan, instead of showing fear, simply smirked. He had prepared in advance. Unknown to everyone, he had already created a domain in that exact area. An invisible field of absolute control. To Jahan, the difficulty had been worth it. The space around him distorted with a faint ripple. The sounds grew muffled. This was no ordinary ability. It was a space domination technique, a manifestation of pure force, a domain without form yet absolute in its control. Anyone who stepped into this zone would find their movements restricted, their decisions overwritten. Within this space, Jahan was the master, and all others were mere puppets. Most people didn't even know this type of power existed. It wasn't flashy, didn't glow or shimmer, but it was deadly, and Jahan was all too familiar with it. Baron, a powerful but poorly controlled warrior, had always chosen Jahan as his sparring partner. Though Baron's raw strength was overwhelming, his precision lacked discipline. Jahan, however, learned to withstand that chaotic force, adapting and understanding it intimately. Through those brutal training sessions, Jahan had come to master force itself. Now, he stood as a unique existence, someone who wielded both divine and magical power, who had honed martial strength, and who had unlocked the secrets of force. And all of this while still officially ranked in the Bronze League. Reinvigorated by the sheer energy of the domain, Jahan launched another assault. His sword cut down zombie after zombie with mechanical efficiency. The system window updated rapidly. Out of 1,000 zombies, Jahan had already defeated 124. He paused briefly, eyes scanning the remaining horde. A memory stirred. Last time he had failed to defeat all 1,000. But this time, with the power surging through him, it felt possible. No, it felt certain. Then the system displayed his next objective. Jahan's grip tightened around his sword. The battlefield trembled beneath his feet. This time he would not fall short. Jahan's tempo only increased, each swing of his sword sharper, faster, and more decisive than the last. His momentum was relentless, as if he had become a storm tearing through the battlefield. His voice rang out over the chaos, daring the undead to come closer, mocking their numbers. He demanded more, inviting the zombies to charge at him in droves. He wasn't slowing down, he was gaining speed with every step forward, his body and blade in perfect sync as he cut through the endless tide of enemies. He was a machine of destruction, moving with precision and purpose. Blood splattered around him in a macabre dance as the corpses piled at his feet. The zombies, driven by mindless aggression, kept coming, but Jahan showed no signs of fatigue. His aura was growing heavier, more refined with each second. From atop the castle walls, BJ stared in disbelief, watching Jahan tear through wave after wave of the undead. His words came out slowly, almost stunned. What he was witnessing was something unreal, something that defied every expectation. Beside him, Massa gave a stiff nod, equally astounded. Even for someone who had seen their fair share of battles, this scene was far beyond ordinary. It wasn't just a player holding his ground. Jahan was dominating the battlefield like a war god descended onto a cursed land. Meanwhile, the live stream chat was exploding with reactions. Viewers were going wild, throwing out jokes and praise in equal measure. They reminded each other that Jahan hadn't made that promise without reason. His confidence had substance. He was proving himself every second. Some viewers began rallying the community. They encouraged everyone watching to subscribe. 200,000 was now in sight. Jahan's performance had transformed the stream into a phenomenon. People didn't want to miss a single moment. BJ, still watching with wide eyes, confessed to the stream that he was genuinely curious now. Jahan's power was simply too overwhelming. What kind of stats did he have? What kind of system window supported a performance like this? As the camera focused back on the action, more viewer comments flooded in. Some laughed, mocking the defeated Gangnam troll captains who had been made a joke of. Others turned their attention to a growing concern. Kim Ju-hyuk, the mage, had gone completely silent. His absence in the chaos felt unnatural. Suspicion spread through the chat. A voice popped up asking why that bastard Ju-hyuk was so quiet. More joined in. They began asking BJ to show the mage. There was tension in the comments, curiosity laced with unease. BJ turned, sensing the shift in mood. He looked over his shoulder and called out to Ju-hyuk, letting him know the viewers were asking about him. They wanted to see what he was up to. Ju-hyuk slowly turned around. His expression was twisted. He was grinning, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was dark, malicious, and unhinged. Without a word, he raised his hand and a thick, ominous pressure swept through the area. A surge of fire mana erupted around him, swirling with intensity as if he were preparing for something catastrophic. BJ stepped back in alarm, his voice filled with confusion. He asked what Ju-hyuk was doing, but Ju-hyuk didn't respond to him. Instead, his gaze locked onto Jae-han, and from his throat erupted a bitter, hate-filled laugh. His voice rose, laced with venom and fury. He screamed Jae-han's name, then cursed him in the most vile way. His words dripped with deep resentment as he mocked Jae-han for being in the spotlight, for becoming something everyone admired. The insults escalated. He spat out an accusation, calling Jae-han a piece of trash who went around seducing his own niece. His words grew more vile, more toxic with every breath. He questioned how Jae-han had manipulated her, how he had gaslighted her to trust him so blindly. His voice cracked with madness as he spewed rage into the air. The stream chat exploded with reactions. Viewers were horrified. Many commented in anger, pointing out that the bastard had now brought Sia into this. He had crossed an unforgivable line. His words weren't just inappropriate, they were slanderous, shameful, and repulsive. But Ju-hyuk wasn't finished. His eyes glowed with unrestrained hatred. He questioned if maybe Jae-han had manipulated her after all. Maybe it was worse. Maybe he had simply been too nice, too warm, too kind, and that's how he gained her trust. His accusations twisted again, dark, invasive thoughts pouring from his mouth like venom. He demanded to know what Jae-han had done to make her so loyal. What had happened between them? He accused them both, Jae-han and Sia. He asked what they had done together, his tone full of foul implications and baseless suspicion. In that moment, Jae-han froze in place. His expression changed, his face darkened, and a deadly silence fell over him. He slowly turned to look at Ju-hyuk. There was no need for words. His glare alone was enough to crush the atmosphere around him, a death glare sharper than any blade locked onto the mage. The air around Jae-han felt suffocating, electrified with wrath. Ju-hyuk, the 55,000 GP reward mission had been issued with a singular goal: destroy the crystal and stop Sung Jae-han from taking first place. The task had been assigned to Kim Ju-hyuk, and it was a direct result of the grudge harbored by members of the Sword King clan. Their resentment toward Jae-han had finally taken form, and this bounty was their weapon of vengeance. The reward, if exchanged to cash, would amount to 55 million won, an amount more than enough to reignite Ju-hyuk's ambitions. It injected fresh courage into his veins, pushing him to crawl back up from the shadows he had once receded into. Sung Jae-han had already realized this. He understood the signs. If someone who had been laying low suddenly began acting recklessly, then the cause had to be one of two things. Either he now had someone powerful backing him, or someone was actively instigating him. Jae-han wasn't bothered by the personal insults thrown his way. He had endured worse, but to hear someone speak ill of Sia crossed a boundary he could never tolerate. The moment he had regressed and met Sia again, the memories had returned. Unwelcome, haunting. The past he had wanted to forget had clawed its way back. The nightmares replayed vividly in his mind, Sia's final moments in that timeline. Her face, wrapped in bandages, was scared by the brutal attacks of the Sword King clan. When he had embraced her then, her body held no warmth. It had already grown cold, and just like that, he had lost her. He hadn't been able to do anything, nothing that mattered. So Jae-han had made a vow. He had promised himself that such a tragedy would never repeat, that he would protect her no matter the cost, that no one would ever hurt her again. In the present, a powerful aura surged from Jae-han's body, radiating with an overwhelming intensity. The viewers watching the live stream erupted in real-time reactions. They saw it too. Jae-han was truly angry now. The comments reflected their shock. Sung Jae-han was pissed. His aura crackled like a tempest. The moment Ju-hyuk had insulted his family, he had gone too far. The viewers urged Jae-han to unleash everything. Some even worried he looked like he was going far beyond the limit. Inside Jae-han's mind, a deep fury settled. He made a silent declaration. He would make everyone remember what happened to those who dared to mess with Sia. In the time since he had gained the Force, Jae-han had come to a deeper understanding of his abilities. During his attempts to unify the Tri-Key Center, he had uncovered a secret. He could now imitate the technique known as the Nameless Divine Arts. Though he hadn't yet achieved martial power level 30 and was therefore only imitating the true form, he could still feel it. When he combined the three key centers into one, the sensation was unmistakable. It echoed the moment he had first accessed the Nameless Divine Arts. Harnessing that energy, Jae-han unleashed electricity from the soles of his feet, transforming himself into a living bolt of lightning. His movement, Heaven's lightning step, was like a divine strike, footwork that pierced through the heavens themselves. As he activated the technique, electric surges exploded outward, instantly obliterating scores of zombies in his path. The battlefield was lit by his storm, a dazzling display of power and wrath. Elsewhere, someone in the chat urgently messaged Ju-hyuk. They told him to destroy the crystal. Sung Jae-han was already on the move. They couldn't afford to wait. Ju Hyuk laughed in a twisted tone. He felt refreshed, satisfied after hurling his venom at Jae-han. He acknowledged the message with a mocking smile. But BJ tried to stop him. His voice rang out, trying to de-escalate the situation. Ju Hyuk responded by attacking him, eyes wild with anger. He shouted at BJ to stop annoying him. If BJ interfered again, he threatened to burn him alive. BJ held his ground, drawing his sword just in time to block the attack. His voice turned serious as he looked toward the stream, calling out to the audience. He told everyone that if they wanted him and Jae-han to survive, they needed to like and subscribe. The viewers exploded in laughter and disbelief. Even in the middle of chaos, BJ found time to advertise. With a sinister smirk, Mage Ju Hyuk stepped forward, his tone cold and final. He announced that it was time to bring everything to an end. Without hesitation, he unleashed a blazing fire mana attack, aiming it directly at the crystal ball to complete the mission and destroy Jae-han's chances at first place. But just before the blast could strike, Masset intervened. With flawless timing, he hurled his football like a guided missile. It cut through the air and collided with the fire mana mid-flight, deflecting the attack. The explosion fizzled out harmlessly in the air. The crystal remained untouched. Viewers watching the broadcast exploded with excitement. Comments flooded in, some praising Masset's lightning-fast reflexes, others calling his move legendary. Many shouted his name in awe. He had done the unthinkable once again. Some watchers couldn't believe what they had seen. A football blocking a mana attack? It was absurd yet undeniable. The battlefield had witnessed something impossible, and they couldn't help but cheer. But not everyone was thrilled. The user who had earlier commanded Ju Hyuk to destroy the crystal and kill Jae-han was furious. His message appeared in the chat, dripping with rage. He called Masset a bastard, accusing him of ruining their well-laid plan. Another viewer chimed in, joking about the familiar aura they sensed. It smells old, they said, a playful hint that the legendary Sword Clan might be returning from the shadows. Irritated, Ju Hyuk turned sharply toward Masset. His voice was mocking, sharp with disbelief. He demanded to know what the football-loving fool thought he was doing. Masset stood firm. Calm and unwavering, he spoke with conviction. He said he was always serious when it came to games. Games had rules, and those rules mattered. Winning by breaking them wasn't winning at all. He couldn't just sit back and watch someone twist the game's integrity. More than that, Ju Hyuk had insulted his own teammate, the person who had carried him through the match, and worse, he had cursed their family. For Masset, that was a line that should never be crossed. Bad people doing bad things, he couldn't ignore that. Not anymore. Ju Hyuk's rage erupted. He shouted in frustration, questioning why Masset was even involved. But before he could go further, a powerful force swept over the field. A presence descended behind him, heavy, righteous, and overwhelming. Jae-han had arrived. BJ, watching the stream, burst with excitement. He pointed it out for everyone to see. Jae-han had entered the battlefield. Thanks to the audience's focus and support, the chat exploded. Viewers shouted in celebration, some calling him Golden Light. His arrival shifted the energy of the arena entirely. Everyone could feel it. The real fight was about to begin. Jae-han's face was unreadable, but his eyes told the story. His fury simmered just beneath the surface. His glare locked onto Ju Hyuk, cold and sharp as a blade. Silence followed, thick and heavy. Then Jae-han spoke. His voice was calm, with a restrained anger, and it cut through the air like a weapon. Ju Hyuk had crossed a line, and there would be no turning back. Fear gripped Ju Hyuk instantly. His thoughts spiraled in panic. He couldn't believe what was happening. Jae-han's presence crushed him, leaving no room for resistance. He cursed under his breath, trying to think of anything to say. Maybe, if he insulted him one last time, he could hold on to some sliver of victory. But Jae-han didn't give him the chance. Mana surged around his body and clamped over Ju Hyuk's mouth, silencing him completely. No words escaped. No cries. Jae-han stepped forward. He told Ju Hyuk that when they first met, he had wanted to end him on the spot, blast his head off and finish it then and there. But now he had changed his mind. Death was far too kind. Inside the battle.net, pain was filtered. Death was just a dropping level. Nothing more. No lasting punishment. That's all Ju Hyuk knew. Common rules. But Jae-han had surpassed that world. He had entered a realm where new rules applied, and he was going to pull Ju Hyuk into it. Ju Hyuk's mind raced. He called Jae-han a fool in his thoughts. Why delay? Why not just kill him and be done? He had already lost everything: skills, pride, the reward. But still, if his actions had made Jae-han this angry, then maybe he'd won in some small, twisted way. Jae-han placed his hand on Ju Hyuk's shoulder. The pressure that followed was not physical, it was spiritual. It was pain, pure and crushing, aimed directly at the soul. Ju Hyuk trembled violently. His body shook as an unbearable force pinned him down. He couldn't scream, but his agony was visible. Jae-han stood over him like a shadow of judgment, calm and absolute. It reminded Ju Hyuk that this wasn't the real punishment. This was only the beginning.